G'day, denizens of the mortal realms. It is time to get into our Custer-Light formation because we are talking about the new Cities of Sigmar. At the time of recording, it is the day of launch. So it hasn't hit the shelf just yet. But more importantly, why I'm telling you this is because they may be erratas and FAQs along the way. So check this out if you're watching this a little bit further in time, but we are going to give you our first thoughts and kind of start breaking this book down a little bit to help you understand, because it is a big book. The old cities book was super complicated, and we are going to break it down in a 3-part series. So my first guest is joining me from the Freeguild ranks. It is the Marshal himself, Bart, one of the top performing Cities of Sigmar players, someone who I've been talking to a long time about cities, an absolute champion, and I'm really excited to kind of unpack this with a very human flavor. So we will talk about elves, we will talk about Duardin, but we'll kind of simplify the book a little bit and focus on the humans for a vast majority of this conversation. So before we get into it and get into the rules and unpack this, I'm going to pass it over. Bart, g'day, welcome. Introduce yourself to the mortal realms.
Thanks, man. Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm looking forward to talking about cities. I kind of was like a natural segue for me to get back into cities when I came back to the game. I stopped when a lot of other people did when they had the magical fall of heart of 8th edition, and kind of came back slightly after that, and right around 3rd edition starting. And I was like, well, what am I going to do with all these little Battle for Skull passes? And I was like, I don't know, Iron Drakes look fun. So I hopped into Iron Drakes and started teleporting them around the board for the last 2 years and had a blast with that. Stopped because I recently went into Corn. So this year's focus is Corn. So you'll probably won't see me play cities till LVO, except for maybe a few TTS matches here and there. But yeah, I've been loving cities ever since. There's just such a big range, and there's so many like fun little techie things that you could do with the old book. And I think they did a good job kind of grasping that and bringing it into the new book without relying on some of the old stuff. So it's cool.
Yeah, it's fascinating because when we very first got the first Cities of Sigmar book, was it 2019 or 2018, whatever that was,
Mhm.
um, it was that massive soup of just the old world armies. It's like, what can we do with the high elves, the empire, the dwarves, and the wood elves? And let's just chuck them into this, and dark elves, chuck it into this weird soup that has literally no synergy. It's like multiple small little armies across the board. And I found it really difficult to kind of build this because it was kind of forcing you down into one route. So it'll be great to kind of talk to you today and unpack to see what's changed and how do you make sense, because it is so synergistic. There are so many keywords that the old book would kind of force you in one way. How's this change? But what is your first thoughts? Like, now that we've had the book and, for anyone who has seen the rules, or you have had a little bit of seen the chatter that's been happening, or Games Workshop's been talking about the rules. What's your early thoughts? What's your early
Yeah.
thoughts of the Battletome?
My first thing was probably what a lot of people thought as I looked at it and I was like, come on, man, let me just play my elves and dwarves and humans together. I'm sure everybody was kind of over it, you know? Like, all right, whatever. So I started looking through the book a bit, and I actually think they did a pretty decent job of kind of bringing them all together. So the humans have their kind of play with each other, and then they kind of want to maybe splash a unit of elves or something, or a couple units of elves, or you might run one of one and then splash a little bit of that. So I think the kind of the way that I ended up starting looking at it is like, cool, I'm going to run one of them as my main, and then the other, maybe it's dwarves or elves, whatever. I run them as like 30% of my army. They give me a battle tactic, and they might do something that the humans couldn't do, whatever that is. Maybe get around the board quickly, get through heavy armor save stuffs, whatever that is. So I think they've kind of done a pretty good job with that. Now, obviously, everyone's looked at some of the spicier things, we'll say, and called them, oh, this is crazy. But I think they do want you to get into the humans and check some of the stuff out, and they've done a really good job with the models. The sculpts are beautiful. I mean, obviously, everyone saw that cannon. It was like, I got to get about 7 of those cannons to put them on the table. There's some really cool models that are out with this book, and like I think they did a good job, kind of with all that stuff and mixing them all together and kind of bringing it back together and making it feel more like cities where you still have your combos, you still have all the little tiny things that fit together, but it's maybe not as much of, all right, you have to take this hero with this unit and this hero with this unit to get the buffs like it used to be.
Yeah, it was super when you looked at it at a very granular level, especially because of the elves and how like the high elves, the dark elves, and the wood elves kind of worked. You know, you were building very micro forces. Even the humans, you had the collegiate arcane versus the free guild, and it was really hard to find the combinations. I want to pause for a second, rewind. So you talk about the models.
Yeah.
Big changes with the models, especially because you're right, the old bookie was a big soup, and now I do feel like there's a bit more of a common theme, especially with the free guild side, the human side, and it kind of looks a little bit more aligned to the dwarves, which I really like. But model wise, fan, not a fan. What's your thoughts?
My first thought was, okay, it kind of looks a little different because you normally get a lot of more heroic value in a lot of the models. You look at the Fire Slayers, the dwarves are very different. You look at the elves like Marathi and the Bowsnakes. All right, a lot of that stuff just looks different. And here it almost feels more 40K-ish to me because it feels like they're bringing some of that darker side of stuff. They're trying to get into the nitty gritty of the humans that are actually, slogging through it. The steel helms feel like the dudes that just sit there and just take it. You know what I mean? Like that's their job. And then like, cool, now we've got these guys and we're like, man, we're in Gur. We need bigger guns. All right, we'll get a bigger gun. Well, how are we going to protect yourself? Throw a shield on the front. Let's go. So I feel like they kind of did a good job kind of bringing in a little bit of that almost like a 40 cast feel, but into the actual realm that we're currently in with the realm of Gur.
Yeah, it's fascinating because, you know, like we've all been thinking like what do the humans look like in the mortal realms, especially how do you make a army that is maybe in Shaiish versus Gur versus Akshi, and it's interesting when you look at the old range, especially in the Free Guild range, and people have seen my love-hate relationship with the new models. The steel helms, I'm still going to try to swap their heads to see if I can put like the old Free Guild heads on top of it, the old hat and feather and the things that I really enjoy. But you do feel it's a little bit more customizable. So whether you want to make a Lethis army, whether you want to make a Misthaven army, you want to do something that's Living City, there's enough there to make it customizable without having to be a master converter and kit basher. And I think that's kind of one of the key things I really like.
Yeah, my real question is how many people you think are going to show up with Free Guild Guard and little tiny tinfoil hats on each one?
It's a good question. It's a good question, and it's going to be curious because people are got, and we'll talk about some of the range that's changed a lot. You know, you're going to have handgunners. Are people going to go buy the new version of the handgunners? The what's it called? The Fusiliers.
Players, yeah.
Yeah, you know, are people going to run handgunners versus the Fusiliers? Are people going to find alternatives to the Cavaliers? You know, from various ranges. Are you someone like me who's already kit bashed a whole bunch of knights to look like Drakespawn knights? So I think it's probably one of the cool things I really love about Cities is it has got a lot of expression, and you can customize it to the way you want to see your city.
Oh yeah, definitely. And with that, I mean, I don't want to get into too many of the new units, but with the soup that is the Human Palooza, with that you can use a lot of your old cool heroes to fill that role. Like I've already got a Wood Elf banner bearer that's going to be my banner guy. You know what I mean? You're going to go through your old stuff, find some pewter stuff that you haven't seen in forever, put it on the table, and be like, "This is my command core." You know what I mean? Because it can be really whatever you want. It's really neat.
It's funny you say that because I'm looking at the Great Cannon and I'm looking at my old Empire cannon. So I've got about 5 or 6 Empire cannons, and I want to kit bash them. I'm an Empire guy. So anyone who played Fantasy Battles back in the day, I'm obsessed with Empire. So when I'm looking at the Pope, the Matriarch, I'm like, how can I kit bash this with the Grand Theogonist? How can I tap into different things? And you know, being the special, unique butterfly that I am, I'll have something that's special to me as opposed to box art. And that's cool, but it allows me to express myself in a little different way.
Yeah, how cool would a war priest be as one of those guys? You know what I mean? Like
Well,
the one that gives off the commands. You know what I mean? You can use all that stuff that you used to have, put a cool theme together, and then great, that's your command corp, and it's something that you can spend a lot of money or a lot of time on. You know what I mean? Like a little bit of investment. It looks neat. It's unique to you.
100%. And it's funny because Bart and I were talking a little earlier, and as soon as the book came out, I had to put a Twitter post up, and I said, X post, sorry now. I said, I have 140 flagellants that I've owned since like, actually, I started my flagellant journey in Empire. Like I always had like a block of 20 or 30 flagellants. So as soon as I saw Vindicarum, I'm like, I'm running 100 flagellants. Like and we'll get into the rules. We'll talk about lists. But I think folks, if you're listening to this, you are seeing genuine excitement from Bart and I about the new opportunities either to model, to paint, but also to play new list ideas, which I think we're both pretty excited for, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. I've been talking to a lot of the like really good players, and everyone's got a different take, which is really neat.
Yeah, like, and you know, I've got another chat coming up pretty soon with a gentleman over in the UK called Freddie, and I know Freddie is a big fan of the elf side. So, you know, when you start looking at this, whether it's from a human lens, an elf lens, a dwarf lens, the way you interpret the subfactions and the combinations, there's just endless possibilities, which is what I really like. But it's through that as well you get a lot of complexity. It's like,
Yeah.
where do I start? How many do I get? And you can get into this like analysis paralysis. You're buying models, you paint them up, they don't work the way you did. And you're just in this constant cycle of like, it's hard. And that's kind of why we're going to talk about this today. So, what do you think the strengths are from this book? So, we've talked about versatility, we've talked about obviously conversion and painting, but like as a functional army, what is its strengths on the battlefield?
I think the real thing that's going to be nice is it's going to allow you to put a lot of guys on the battlefield, um, and just play with a bunch of dudes just running up the middle. It kind of really gets that city's feel of like, hey, we're not the best at anything, but we're going to try our best, and we're going to bring a bunch of guys back, and then without getting into the mechanics, you put a lot of dudes on the field. They can feel pretty tanky and hang out. You can also get some good shooting. You can also get some guys that are moving up your flank pretty quick. So there's a lot of different options. Again, like you're saying, the book pairs really well. The units and heroes do really well together. So, whether it's like a cavalry hero with a cavalry unit, those do great. You bring a foot hero, he's going to be able to support that unit or multiple units. And there's the way they brought, and we'll get into orders in a bit, but the way they brought orders into it, it allows for a lot of these units to work very synergistically, move together, and it also allows a lot of counterplay into your opponents. So I think this army is going to have a really high skill expression. I think trying to figure out what the orders are and which ones you drop when and where are going to be really good. And it'll allow you to just kind of play around what your opponents are doing. So I think
Yeah,
it'd be
so
really fun.
So if you want to build a shooting list, there is absolutely a build and a very strong build. One of the ones that potentially could see a points increase, which is why we're saying this is currently as we know it. There could be an errata or an FAQ in the next 4 to 6 weeks. So we'll kind of keep that in the back of your mind. But there's a really good shooting kind of component. You do have some great melee options. You can run monsters. You can run magic. You can run lots of troops. You can run little troops. There is so many different options to this. Hell, run an army of steam tanks. Like if you want to run steam tanks with like a stupid save and just like go forth,
Yeah.
do it.
Put
It's
like 10 of them
viable.
on. Yeah, you put
It's
like
so
10 of them on the
viable.
board. Just go, here's my army. Have fun with it.
It's Suns, but in city form, be like, here's a steam tank.
Except for
What
you count as
screens?
2 on every objective. You're like, all right, whatever. But it's okay. I'm going to have fun killing everything.
Speaking of steam tank, less about the steam tank, more about a segue. Has there been any of the existing units that have kind of really stood out to you where there's been a glow up where you're like, oh, I didn't really run that before, and now it's like, whoa, wait a second, I'm looking at
Um,
you.
yeah, there's a couple things that have kind of had a glow up. Honestly, it's kind of hard to say steel helms because I feel like steel helms are kind of like Freeguild guard. So okay, those might be new units, but I like them as a glow up. I'll say the Freeguild heroes because I don't know if their name changed or exactly how that works, but the all three of the Freeguild heroes are fantastic. I'm really excited to see all three of them on the battlefield, and I see reasons to bring all three of them. I mean, the foot hero is great. He brings this little command core and gets a 4-up board. It's like the old cities rule where you used to get the 4-up board. It's great. The Griffin's really good. It's a little expensive, but it gets to roar at 2 things. You can have all kinds of fun stuff. And then you've got the mounted hero that gets to run around with the cavalry and just wreak havoc. It's kind of hilarious. And the book kind of helps you want to run more heroes. So the
Mm.
heroes just are fantastic. Saying steam tanks again. Steam tank was one of the ones on the list. 2-up armor saves hilarious. It might be a little bit of a meme, but it's a fun meme. You might not go to a tournament and win too many games, but you're gonna have a blast doing it. Uh, and then of course, a lot of people are looking out there and they see Hurricanums and they're like, oh, it shoots in both faces. It's not gonna stay, guys. Don't go out and buy 4 Hurricanums. If you don't already have them, don't go invest in them. It's a fun joke. Yeah.
I got 2, maybe 3. I can't remember. I think I've got 3.
Yeah. I don't know if you've met Nick True, but he's got 4 sitting on the shelf ready to go. Yeah, he's had him for a while, but he's pretty excited about it. And then, I would say a glow adjacent is the battle mages. I kind of like the way that they change them up, and they've got some really cool spells, especially in our magic world that we're in right now. It's a good location, and I also like the fact that maybe they're not going to get used in every single army. They still do have the +1 to their war scroll, but that's not enough for Sylvaneth to be taking them and all the other armies to be taking them.
Stormcast RIP. So Stormcast players, if you were using
Yeah.
wild form to get +1 while we played in Gur, +2 on your run and charge for your Dracoline type, like Dracothian Guard. Sorry, not sorry. Sylvaneth as well is another one. It's like Battle Mage, stupid endless
Mhm.
spell, +5 on the charge. Nah.
Yeah, so they kind of limited that, but that's why I said glow adjacent. I think it's better for cities, and I think it makes you want to bring more of them, and maybe not just this one specific thing. And I think it'll give you a few more options to be able to play around. And I really think eternal balance is really important in this game, and just giving as many options to the player. I mean, obviously, a lot of people, like you said, look at this and are kind of like, where do I start? But at the same time, it does give you the option to go, okay, cool, this good player ran this. Let me try it out, and then I'm going to change some things to it and make it my own.
I'll call out 2 other ones that you didn't mention that I think are at least interesting to explore. The first one is the dad and daughter combination. So Dorelia is someone that I was playing with a little bit, and I really enjoy her, especially in this magic meta where her shots against wizards are doing double damage. But she used to cost like 110 points. Now for 160 points, I get both of them, which
Yeah,
I think for 2 heroes for 160 points, it's good value. That's good
yeah,
value.
I agree. I mean, and they come in the box together, so it's like might as well make you run them both together, and they actually play really nice off of each other.
No one ever ran dad. Dad never got
Exactly.
run. Um, the other one, which was fascinating, and I've lost it. I had it. I'll remember it in a second. I know the assassin for me was a surprise because the assassin now has to go into an elf unit, which I thought, oh, the assassin used to own, like you rarely saw the assassin to begin with. Now it's like restricted it even more.
Yeah.
I was kind of a little bit sad there.
Yeah, I'm not super happy with where they put that. But the command core guy that's like an assassin in the unit, that guy hits pretty hard, man. He's a blast. I had fun using him.
I've just had a mind blank. I had another one I was going to call out. I'm sure it'll come back to me as we're talking. But there are some interesting changes, some cool changes. But to your point, something you mentioned that I kind of want to share with everyone now. The way I look at cities, and I'll get Bart your opinion in a second, is exactly the same way I look at my gits. I either run a 60 to 70% of my points into one build, so it might be human, dwarves, or elves, and then I could be doing 30% elsewhere. So I could do like squigs and trogs or grots and squigs, so some combination. Or I'm looking at power pairs and power trios. So I'm like, right, I've got my squigs, it needs a squig boss. I've got my trogs, I need my trog boss. And the same is true here. I'm going to have X unit, I'm going to have Y unit to kind of complement it. So Rune Lord with Hammerers and Thunderers, like just like that's a little combination.
Yeah. Yeah, no, 100%. I think it's gonna maintain through like true through this whole book is you really kind of want the heroes, and I said they didn't pair them as much as they did previously, but it also allows you a little more freedom this time. Like you said, you might want a rune lord for something else, but the city's hero not only does do stuff for the units that he's around, he's also got the orders as well, and we'll get into those. But he can buff other things, and he's got all kinds of stuff on his war scroll. I think it's pretty neat.
Oh, I remember the other change as well. Oh, this wasn't the one I was thinking about, but another one that I thought was really interesting is you can take the Drakespawn chariots and the Scourge Runner chariots now in units of 3, where
Yep.
before they were just solo. So I think that's an interesting little choice.
Yeah, and I mean, I've told around with a few different lists, like you said, as trios. We'll talk about it later, but sorceress and maybe some of those Drake Spawn knights, and then you want the cavalry to go with them because the chariots get better when they're near the cavalry. So it's a cool little combo where you can just throw all 3 of those units together. Maybe tag that into an infantry build of humans, or maybe a dwarf build, and this is your little elf unit that can just pop off to the left or to the right and kind of whittle out things and take an objective for you, and maybe pick up another battle tactic.
So let me ask you just before I'm going to get into the rules in a second, but
Yeah.
one question I want to ask you is we are currently in General's Handbook 2023, which is Antorian Locusts and Wizard Goodness and Hoarfrost and yada yada yada. How do you think this book is going to play out? Knowing that as well, we're going to be here for 12 months. So we know that this is not a part A, part B series. So we're going to have this for a fair while.
Yeah. I think cities will play well into it. And I think they get a lot of, we'll call it temporary power from the GHB. And the reason for that is you've got there's 3 or 4 different wizards that really do well with the extra cast, and the spell lore for this book is really solid. Like you said, we'll get into the spell lore, but there's at least 3 or 4 spells that you want to be casting, and you're trying to get them off as a high value as possible. And cities doesn't really have a lot of spell defense, so you can also use that to leverage stopping certain spells as well. You know, the ones that you're really scared of, whatever croaks throwing at you. Granted, it's 15 spells, but you know maybe it's something from Zinch that you wanted to stop really bad. You know, or some sort of teleport.
But we do have the Luminarch. So if you want to go into the anti-magic, we got the good old Luminarch.
This is true.
All right. So let's get into the actual book and the changes. The first one I want to kind of acknowledge is the rules have fundamentally changed. Back in the old book, for those who might remember it, you could coalition 1 in 4, would be like Stormcast. Some of them could coalition, like Tempest's could do 1 in 4 KO. What was that? 1 in 4. What was the other ones? There was a
Living
couple
City
of
still enough.
Living City, Sylvaneth. There was a couple of 1 in 4s. So it did allow you to do some cheeky things like bring 4 dragons or 4 Fulminators that go above your match play ally pool. There were some things like your honored retinue, where if 2 idiots stood next to each other, you could generate a command point. There was a whole bunch of rules, and even the way that the sub factions, your Hallow Hearts, your Tempest's, those like would have their set spells, they would have set abilities and set artifacts. That's all changed, completely changed. But what's your thoughts? And are you sad that some of these things have gone? Do you think what we've got is a glow up? Where are you at?
You know, originally I was kind of sad because you know it's fun to dive in and do these crazy things, but I think it's better for newer players, and I think that basically what you're looking at now is you know everything's kind of the same, and then you use your sub faction to either tool into something or it's a much more minor bonus. You know what I mean? So I noticed the Corn book, and there's quite a few books that have been similar in this facet that maybe your sub faction isn't the most important thing, so then everything's balanced outside of that, and then people will choose their sub faction from that. I mean, there's a problem with one sub faction is the only one people choose, and it's hard to fix that in a scenario like this. But I don't think it'll be the case because I think these sub factions are unique enough. The cities are unique enough that you get some really cool options.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
You're not going to miss having, so you've lost the Phoenician, you've lost Anvil Guard /
Oh
Harp
yeah.
Huron. Are you going to miss those as sub factions?
Well, I mean, we'll get into it in a second, but again, with all the models getting dropped, it's hard to have a Phoenician anymore. But I know that's a sore spot for both of us.
Thoughts and prayers for our high
Ah,
elves. So if you had, and this was the old range, folks. So I just want to kind of share the journey for the first time. So you're seeing here a bunch of units that have been legend. And I'm sure Bart's going to talk a bit about a little swerve we could possibly do, but you can see on the screen here you've got your high elf stuff, so your flame and your frost phoenix, your anointed. There was some of the Freeguild range, so your pistoliers, your handgunners, your demigryph knights, your Freeguild guard, your great swords. You had some wood elf stuff, so your sisters of the thorn, sisters of the watch, your shadow warriors. There's a whole bunch. I think there's about 15 in total. I think I've got a wrong cross there. The cogsmith is still in, so ignore the cross there. Ignore that
okay,
one.
nobody
But
brings them.
poor old cogsmith. But how were you impacted by the changes and the removal from the old book?
Apart from not being able to get a box of Eternal Guard for my new Corncast army that I'm building over here, because I'm using their heads. Other than that, I don't think it's really that big of a deal. I think you know a lot of people might have been upset at first, but almost every option that you're seeing up here that's dropped has a good viable option in the new book. So you know, for example, I'm really excited about like running Cavaliers. I'll probably just run Wild Riders as my Cavaliers. They're great models. They look nice. They're probably going to be on a similar base. So I'll just end up basically, slightly moving some stuff over, and we're good to go. Phoenix Guard are gone, but what do you call it?
Executioners.
Yeah, you can run them as executioners. You can run them as Black Guard, because Black Guard also get a 4-up if they're near a sorceress. So they literally don't even change. They're the exact same models, basically. They might even have the same stats. I got to check. But and you can run any of these. You can run Eternal Guard as Dread Spears, or even Steel Helms, whatever you really wanted to run them as. And I don't think a lot of your opponents are going to have a problem with that. I know if you really want to go kind of off the rails and there's some question marks, maybe bring some tokens and set them in front of the unit that says this unit is this. But I mean, even Frostheart Phoenix, they're great models. You could probably just put that on the Black Dragon base and call it a Black Dragon, or even a Griffin, and I don't think anyone's ever going to have a problem with that. They might innately think that there's a 4 ward save on it. We talked about earlier, but other than that, I don't think any of your opponents are going to complain about that.
Yeah, I, as a tournament organizer, imagine this time next year, there is going to be proxies. For example, great swords. I love my great swords. Great swords are no longer in the range. I want to have like a thematic thing in my army, so I'm going to bring them as executioners or blackguard, and I can see that as being a conversation. So it doesn't mean that you have to kind of remove them. I'm sure. I'm not giving you permission, by the way. It'll be up to your event organizers. But I can see a lot of leniency, as long as you said, that conversation is happening and it's very clear that X is Y, or the characteristics are the same. So maybe your Sisters of the Thorn, the ones on foot, or watch. I always confuse the two. I think it's on the watch, the one
Watch on the foot. Yeah.
Yeah, I always get the two confused. Doesn't matter, they're gone. But you could potentially maybe put a shield in front of them and maybe call them your Fusiliers, whatever. Like, I'm
Yeah.
sure there's something in there.
Make sure to email your TOs ahead
Yes.
of time.
When in doubt, yes, please contact your TO and just let them know why you're doing it, and I'm sure they'll be cool with it. I will say, though, I am surprised Demigryph Riders didn't make the cut. So that's probably the big one that really surprised me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an old Wood Elf player, which is another reason why I got into cities. But I was surprised that some of those Wood Elf lines are very nice lines, and they're newer than a lot of these Dark Elf things. And I'm surprised that they cut the Wood Elf out and not the Dark Elf. I'm sure they've got their reasons, but it was very surprising. So
It makes me wonder if Old World plays a part to this, but I felt the same kind of way with when we moved to the original cities, because the War Altar, which is the same kit as the Hurricanum Luminarch at the age that got cut, but Hurricanum Luminarch stayed. But even though we lost some things, we did gain a whole bunch of things. So there's a whole bunch of new models. I'm going to do a quick round of like it or don't like it. You can tell me if it's because of rules or whether it's because of model or whatever. It's up to you. So let's do the rapid fire round.
do it.
Iron Will Great Cannon.
I love it. It's too cool.
I love it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a giant cannon with some dudes drinking beer, getting ready to shoot a cannon. It's fantastic.
I love it. I think it might need a points decrease, though.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, it needs. I only love it because of how cool it looks. It needs a points decrease, 100%.
Yeah, it's a little too high. Yeah. But your Steel Helms, your Freeguild Steel Helms.
They're great. The aesthetic's kind of awkward with the helms, but it's okay. But in game, you're going to see them everywhere. They're just they're going to be the backbone to almost every army.
Yeah, and in this limited edition box, you do get 20, so it's a good start. I do see a lot of armies using them. I will probably be trying out some head swaps as well with the Steel Helms. Yep. Your Alchemite Warforger.
Oh, fantastic. The rules are fantastic. The model looks great. There's nothing wrong with that one right there.
His points are going up so
100%. He's going up by almost 50%. I'm calling it now.
This is the Scrag rot of cities. Like, Scraggy was 150. He's now gone to 210. Make no mistake, this guy's probably going to sit on 150. Like,
oh, yeah.
140, 150. Like, it's +1 to cast, ward bubble. Like, there's so many things in this model. It's like, how are you cheaper than a sorceress?
Oh, yeah. Well, he just gives all humans +1 to save. They're within 12. Like, okay. Mystic Shield for everyone? That's the only reason I bring a sorcerer in some list, or a wizard. Okay.
We'll let the limited edition box sell to see how long this stays at 90 points.
Yeah.
Your Freeguild Marshal and the Relic Envoy.
I love him. He's great. And gameplay's good. Cool looking model. Not bad. Like I said, the
Yeah,
city's list is really cool.
if you're running Freeguild, like you're definitely going to run this unless you're building around the knights, which leads me to the equivalent, so the Cavalier Marshal.
Again, like they're I've never said anything bad about the way GW sculpts. They always do some really cool stuff. And this model looks great, and then the rules are actually good too. So it makes me want to bring a couple of them in a couple different lists.
Yeah, if I'm running a knight list, I'm definitely bringing one of these. And it is interesting because I used to run like Pistoliers, Outriders, Demigriff Knights, but I never had a hero to support them other than the Free Guild General on Griffin. And I wanted that to be annoying as opposed to a support piece. And this allows me to have a support model, which I'm really happy for. The next one, my personal favorite. You're going up in points. I know that. The Pope himself, the
Oh yeah,
Pontifex Zenestra Matriarch of the Great Wheel. It's a her, by the way. I think it's a her.
I think
Um, I'm pretty sure. I'll be using Volkmar the Grim at least for a head swap. Where are we at with the Matriarch?
so. Cool looking model and way too cheap. This is gonna go up just like Scraggrot, just like the other one. I think this is where they'll hit the buckets and the support pieces, and I think it needs to go up at least 30%.
Yeah, it's at the moment I'm seeing a lot of lists where it's like auto include 150, like you're finding space for the Pope. So
Mhm.
I love the model as well. I can't wait to get my hands on it whenever it comes. It's not out just yet, but I can't wait to get my hands on that one. Talia, the Lioness of the Parch, the Manticore leader.
Again, the sculpt's gorgeous. I think they did such a good job with making this model. I wish the rules kind of met it a little better. It's really nice to have, but it only gives the 4-up rally in combat. I don't know if they're going to touch that up. Maybe just give it a general 4-up rally, and then it might be worth its points. But I think it might need some help somewhere along the line.
She had a really interesting monstrous rampage as well. I thought was fascinating. The pick one enemy monster that made a charge this turn on a 3+ to strike last, which it's got some interesting rules. I won't lie. I'm curious to kind of unpack this a little further, but it is hard to see this and a Free Guild General on Griffin being in a list. I feel like they're competing with one another at least.
Yeah, I agree with you. And the new Free Guild General has got the double roar, and you can also give them an artifact. It's always the downside of uniques. They can't take that artifact.
And that right there was actually the other thing I was trying to remember. I'm like, what is the other thing that I really like to glow up? And it's the Free Guild General on Griffin. So
Mhm.
it's got some good things. It still hits like a wet noodle, but it has some good rules. I maybe I whiff all the time. I whiff.
It's not bad. It's not great. It's one of those like middle of the grounds. You're like, hey, whatever. It's extra 10 damage somehow. I don't know where that came from.
Maybe I just miss it with the sort of judgment from back in second edition. Like it was just like a killing machine. Now everything just
Mhm.
feels like it just doesn't do it.
Yeah.
It's just my personal bias. A couple of other ones. You have the Gobapalooza, aka the Free Guild Command Corp.
Again, these are pretty awesome. I think it's gonna be an auto include. You're gonna see it in pretty much every single list that has any form of humans in it, and the rules are just. I mean, it takes up a whole page to write out the rules. There's so many different things. You get to give three. You get to heal 3 units within 12 every turn. All right, cool. Or bring models back if they're infantry.
Yeah, if you're running a Free Guild army, if you're running an Elf focused army or a Duardin focused army, less valuable. But if you're running a Free Guild one, yeah, you're taking the Command Corp every day of the week.
Mhm.
Three last ones. You got the Fusiliers, the Free Guild handgunners now with bonus shield, but
Yep.
with so much more power.
Yeah, they've got a little bit. They've got more output for sure. I think people think they're a little better than they are. They're a good solid unit, but they're kind of like the Marathi and the Bosix thing. You got to invest a little bit to get what you need out of it, and they're going to have consistent good damage, and it's a good center point. And you'll see a common list where you see maybe 30 of these guys, or maybe 2 blocks of 20, or maybe 3 blocks of 20 if you really wanted to full dive into it. But I honestly, I think the go-to is going to be like 30 of them, and that's it.
Yeah, if you invest in them, they can be really powerful. They might be on the side of too cheap, or there might be some there's some interesting things. And when you look at the rules, for example, with the Fusiliers, you get bonuses if you don't move, and that kind of makes sense. You're like, okay, the same is true with, let's say, your crew boys. Like, they don't move, they get some bonus things. But within the allegiance abilities, you can move them as if they didn't move, which all of a sudden,
Yeah.
it's like, well, at what point are they not moving then? Like, they're always not moving, so they're always got this maximum profile, which makes me feel a little nervous that they might get a tweak slightly, at least for rules or at least points. But let's see
Yeah,
them on the table.
it was a really cool thing that they wanted to do was, make it to where this unit, when it's stationary, gets all these buffs. And it's a really nice thing. Okay, if you want to move it, now you're losing. And that's kind of what they've always tried to do with cities is Iron Drakes, you lose a shot, crossbowmen, you lose a shot, that type of stuff. Um, and they were like, cool. So if you're stationary, you ignore all these things and get all these cool buffs. But they basically just wrote another way into the book to get around that.
It does make me worried, like, when you build into this, when you go, like, Grey Water Fastness and get, like, multiple all-out attacks, and you got 2 blocks of 20 or 3 blocks of 20, whatever it looks like. You then go a general with, let's say, Master of Ballistics for +1 to wound, with the +1 attack from all-out attack, and then you're adding extra range from one of the artifacts. There's so many combinations, and it's like, this almost feels like it's Blitzbarb Archers again, or it's Marathian the Bow Snakes. Like, it's this combination itself, something feels like, I don't know how long it's going to last. That's my nervousness seeing. Maybe it's the dragons. Like, I bought Stormcast dragons, and they had nerfed them 3 times basically as I bought the box. So this one makes me nervous. So maybe don't pre-order 60 or 80 of them,
I don't
because you
think
might.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think it's as bad as you're thinking. Because the free water or the gill water, what is it? Gray water fastness that gives you 3 all out attacks. It doesn't say from the general, so they don't all get +3 to wound. So it's not as strong as you're originally thinking. You know what I mean? And I think
I'm
they're
just
just gonna stay.
I'm just saying, look, the pessimist in me makes me worried that this is a combination that they'll nip pretty quickly, or they'll try to bring back a little. That's the pessimist in me.
That's it.
Second last one is the Cavaliers.
Yeah, the Cavaliers are awesome, and they have great rules to go with them. And one of the coolest things GW's ever done is they made the unit champ the same profile as the rest of them. He just gets to keep it all the time with +1 attacks. And I'm like, oh, this is great. This is fantastic. So I don't have to memorize 3 different stat lines for the unit. It's just all right, +1 attack, and it's on the charge always, basically.
I
Thank you,
like it.
GW.
Yeah. Yeah. Having different profiles would grind my gears. The last one, which I think is a fascinating one, is the Wilder Corp Hunters. And it's got an interesting rule that they become battle line for every Steel Helm unit you include. So I found that one really interesting.
Yeah, I like them. They look cool. Everybody loves doggos. They're a pretty neat little unit. They've got a little shooting attack. And the best part about them is they have a pregame move. And everybody's afraid of zombies right now. And as Noah Singh said recently, pregame moves real good against zombies. So they kind of control the board for you, and they've got some really cool options.
I wonder if they're too expensive at 140. I look at it and it says it's a great idea, but it's like, do I want to spend 140 for that benefit?
Yeah,
I
it's a
don't
little
know.
expensive. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I have to see how it plays out.
Yeah, but overall, I think the models are looking great. The rules, there's some really interesting rules. You can't include all of them in your list, but whatever you want to build around, there's something for you.
Yeah.
Which is a great segue to what a potato. Ignore me, Starboard Allegiance. Just imagine I didn't have that there. It just says Allegiance. But
Mhm.
you've got a whole bunch of allegiance abilities for your Cities of Sigmar. First off, you have a whole bunch of sub factions, and you have one battle trait, and that's going to be your city's orders. So we'll pause that one for a second, but know that there are new cities. So you've got 2 versions of Hammerhall. So you've got Gairan and you have the Akshi versions. You've still kept Tempest'S, still kept Hallowheart, still kept Living City, kept Greywater Fastness. Lethis is still around. It was an expansion from the original cities book. So was Settlers Gain. So was Misthaven. So was Excelsius. That was from the Broken Realm series. But we do have a new one called Vindicarum, and we'll bring up all the rules as we go through here. So let's ignore that one for now. But the key rule, the key benefit is the Cities of Sigmar orders. So, Bart, I might pass over to you. Tell me more about the orders and what it means to you as a human-focused player.
So yeah, the orders are really neat. So kind of how the mechanics work, real quick, just to get into it, is you choose an order for every hero on the board. Some of them get two. You can't have more than three of the same, but they allow cool mechanics to allow you to interact. They're almost like trap cards, but you can kind of interact either in your turn or the opponent's turn. What it allows you to do is, one of the most common ones that you're going to see a lot is just +3 to move. So you pick a unit, it's within 3 inches of the hero. The hero goes, hey, run a little faster. So they get to actually move out and grab stuff. And then you just flip that one over and it kind of goes away. Now, all these things have to be set at the top of the turn. So they're going to last for both players' rounds. So it's kind of something to think about. It's like, okay, cool. If I'm going first, maybe I don't do all, moves and charges. Maybe I want to keep a counter charge or keep a shoot back at them. One of the other ones that actually interacts in the opponent's hero phase as opposed to my phase. So there's some really cool options.
So a couple of things here is, first off, it happens at the start of the battle round. So when we are doing primal magic dice, when we're working out who goes first, who goes second, it's at that point in time that I get to issue these orders. The orders are put facing down, so your opponent can't see what order you are putting on what unit. And as you see them in a second, they are revealed at certain times. The other key call out as well is that these are not command abilities. So it's not going to affect the way to issue or receive commands throughout the game. So just keep that one in mind. And it kind of ties into the theme that Bart and I were talking about earlier, which is going to be power pairs or power trios, where you're going to have a hero that's going to want to issue one or two commands or two orders to various units, because the more heroes you have, the more orders to issue. So you're going to be thinking about that, especially with the human, elf, or Duardin combinations. Anything else you'd add, or do you want to get and kind of preview them?
Yeah, let's go ahead and check them out, man. They're actually really neat. They completely change how you play this book, so it's really cool.
So here are our commands. This is not story time with Coach. I'm not going to read them all, but at a very high level, there are 2 orders that are for everyone, regardless if you are a human, elf, or Duardin. Then there are 3 specific to human keyword, 2 specific to Duardin keyword, 2 specific to elf keyword. So depending on how you're building will depend on what features you have. And to Bart's point a little earlier, you might see that you have a mixture of human and Duardin, or elf and human, or Duardin and elf. Like, you might have it to take advantage of different combinations.
Yeah, definitely. Did you want me to go through them a little bit and kind of talk high level, or?
Yeah, talk to me. Like, how do you look at these orders? There's a lot of things here, right? From the move to the return fire to the shield wall to the strike first. Like, there's so many things here. Like,
Oh,
how do you see this, and which are the ones that you think you are either building into from a list construction, or even the ones that you think you'll use more often? Because some of these are situational. Countercharge, for example, is a situational one that you will use, but you've got to set it up, and certain rules and certain units are going to need to kind of form together.
yeah. Basically, what I'm looking through, I'm trying to plan around both turns. So I think it's almost one of the. I almost really want to go second more than normal. But at the same time, you also want to be heavy drop. So you're kind of always in flux with that. I mean, you normally are with most books, anyways. But with you get your extra movement. There's all kinds of cool little ways to work around that, and you can also just plan to move something out even further, to get a battle tactic that they think you can't get to, or get to a spot. Maybe pick up an objective. The counter charge one's so good, and like, it's just as long as you're within 12 inches, you can issue the charge. It really brings a heavy case for going low on points and bringing the triumph, so I can reroll that charge and get stuff in. Being able to shoot back at things is great. Again, you said, everybody's a little worried about the Bliss Barbarster list sometimes. Being able to shoot back at that unit, oh man, that's money right there, right? Suppressing fire is great because you can get the battle tactic from it, and we'll get into battle tactics in a bit. But There's just so many cool little options, and then engage the foe is a little more situational for humans, but it lets your cavalry, your big units hit so much harder. And then going into dwarfs and elves, there's so many cool little things you can do, and it's really deciding how you're going to place everything out. And it basically promotes running 6 heroes in almost every single cities list that you run, because every hero is getting one of these orders. You know what I mean? So being able to get a ward save on a unit that's getting charged is fantastic. And then dealing mortal wounds back to a unit, as you're dying. It's just free zombie stuff. You know what I mean? You're already running it. But yeah, I just think there's so many things. Like I said, I focused a lot more on the human stuff, trying to build lists. But there's just so many cool ways that you can play into all these things and tinker around with your opponent and just kind of get ahead of them.
I know you've been playing a few test games, and like we can get into the weeds of this. Like, I look at engage the foe, and I'm like, right, how do I use this with my knights or my free guild guard, or countercharge exactly the same my knights and my free guild guard, or maybe my flagellants. Something like return fire and suppress fire. Suppressive fire could be for like my Fusiliers, or even my what's the ogre, we didn't talk about that as well, the ogre guy,
Oh yeah,
like
the tower guy, Fusilier Marshal, maybe.
With ogre.
With ogre, yep, that's what it was called. Yep, on the ogre, Fusil Major on ogre. There you go.
But like we've got enough shooting to take advantage of. So when you're thinking of list construction, are you thinking about having a little bit of shooting to make sure that you tap into return fire and suppressive fire? Are you thinking about having something that can countercharge or engage foe? Like, how does this all meld into your head when it comes to list construction and tactics?
So really, when I'm building, like, my first thing is I look at the math on stuff and just look at basic stats, right? Like just the super basic stuff. But then I go, okay, what can give me battle tactics? And suppressing fire, killing a unit that's being suppressed, is a battle tactic. So it kind of makes you want to bring some Fusiliers, maybe a 20 block to shoot into some sort of screen. Okay, now they're suppressed, and I'll finish them off with a cavalry unit. You know what I mean? Easy battle tactic, especially with how hard battle tactics are right now. You guys should all be building not just cities lists, but all your lists around trying to make sure that you can pick up 5 battle tactics. And I think cities plays really well into the battle tactic and grand strat game. And the orders just kind of add on to that. You know what I mean? Like, they're almost just like the sprinkles on top. The whole army plays well together, and then the orders kind of just give you that little extra oomph to get through whatever you need to.
And like to that as well, we talked a little bit about why you might want to have a combination army. If you were going to build into the Fusiliers, for example, maybe you want to take a unit of Duardin to form the shield wall to get the 5-up ward, so you can protect that investment of yours. Because like those iron jaws or whatever, combat focus corn is going to want to lift those as quick as possible. But if you can protect them, tie them up, especially with the 5-up ward, you are going to get more out of your Fusiliers, for example. But,
oh yeah.
Is there any other units that and by the way, like because of Cities All, your Dreadlord could be taking advantage of countercharge. You could be doing advanced formation with your what's the Dark Elf crossbows? I mean, there's so many things.
Yeah, everything. And then, I mean, another one that's hilarious is, like, we were talking about how the Fusiliers want to set spot. You can give them advanced formation and then give them the engage the foe at the start of the charge phase, right? Or is it not engage the foe? Excuse me. I thought there's one that lets them sit down.
Sit down?
Maybe not. Oh, yeah. No, it's advance the formation. Sorry. Yeah, so they get their fortified position as well. So you're just getting to move up and get your fortified position right out the bat. Where you're kind of getting rid of that limitation of, okay, if I move, my range gets cut down to 12 inches.
Yeah, there's some really interesting combinations when you look at, let's say, the strike first on an elf unit. You've got the 3-inch movement, and that could either improve your melee focus, whether it's your knights or your flagellants. It could be obviously your elf or Duardin. Like Duardin are pretty slow, right? So that gets you hammerers, it gets your various dwarves into combat a little quicker, or it makes your knights and your cavalry move a little faster. There's a lot of little combinations you can start to break when you start thinking about what am I thinking about in my list and who can benefit the most. I think to your point as well, what's the battle tactics that I want to score? It's a great call. you know, if you're running elves, like, do you want to tap into return fire or suppressive fire? It is situational as well. For example, if you're playing a melee focused opponent, they're not going to be shooting at you very often, so you're not going to have much of a chance to return fire. Just some considerations.
Yeah, and what's great is you don't have to choose the list building. You choose it every single time. So if they don't have any shooting, I don't need suppressive fire. I'll throw something else on them, you know?
Yeah, the point that I wanted to make here, and I think we're both making, is like, don't build a list around like making the most of suppressive fire, because you'll find situations where you don't get to tap into it. But there is so many good uses against so many different units that it just enhances what you do, and it's not a command point, but it also, you want to have some heroes to make sure you get to tap into it.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of heroes, we have our humans. So, being the human-focused discussion, I want to hear a little bit more about your thoughts around the human command traits and artifacts, and we'll do some rapid-fire stuff with the other races. But who's a good general, and what's the general command traits you're thinking about?
Honestly, I love Grizzled Veteran. Oh, excuse me. Just because not being able to be wounded except for 4+ is fantastic. There's so many things that want to wound you on it too. If you want to go for the foot hero that's giving you the all-out attack and the +1 to wound, you got 30 Fusiliers. Master Ballistics is great. And I also even like Fiery Temper. I think that's a cool little option. Put it on like a Freeguild General and Griffin. You know what I mean? He gets in there, and then everything else is getting to charge. I mean, you can move cavalry units 13 inches up the bat, you know, and you get a lot of great little charges right off the bat. And even the priest options are a really good option. I don't think you'll see it as often as some of the other ones, but there's some really cool ways to just throw another priest in your unit. Most armies don't have ways to get rid of the Fire Slayer's endless prayers, and hey, maybe that's your option, you know. And then the artifacts, the kind of the one that stuck out to me that was just like the immediate, like, all right, let's try this, is the Warhammer. And maybe that's why my general on Griffin was hitting so hard. But when he charges and he's at +2 rend and +2 damage, he's not too bad. Yeah, I mean, he's like 4 attacks. You know, if you're all out attacking, it's 2s, 3s, rend 3 damage 4. You're like, all right, he's gonna do some damage, you know. And then he's got the Griffin, the claws attacks, and the beak attacks. It's not bad. I also like the Grimoire. You know, there's a lot of wizards out there, and being able to drop a D3 off of all the casting is pretty nice.
And you got to get the macroscope, right? If you're running a gunline, Fusilier focused army, the macroscope as well, getting the extra 3-inch range characteristic, really does allow you to do some cool things.
Yeah, and you know, it's again, it's like we talked about earlier. I was kind of disappointed. You know, you got the guy on top of the ogre, and then you got this ability. You're adding all these cool ranges. You know, might get rid of your ability to, or might allow you to move a little more often. But it's like half the time you just give them the move order and they just sit back down. I think it was kind of a miss by them giving that move order. I think it should have been something that was more punishing, and then maybe made the unit a little more damaging. But hey, if I'm moving up, I've got to take that risk of, hey, this is the first turn. I'm not going to get the same damage output as everyone else, you know? So I think that was kind of a miss, but it's okay. Can't get everything right.
I think what's cool is that there's options, right? So if I want to run, let's say, a knight-focused army, I'm running my cavaliers. I could put Fiery Temper on a Freeguild Marshal on Griffin, or the Freeguild Marshal on Horse, whatever the generic one is called. Have Marshal Cavalier. It'll always be Freeguild General on Horse in my heart. If you're running a shooting-focused army, you do Master of Ballistics. Grizzled Veteran is just going to be great regardless. And I know Bart and I were talking offline. One of the ideas that I was playing around with is Divine Champion. Put that on a Hurricanum or a Luminarch. Could be a great way to get Curse off, because you'll have something a bit more durable that'll be close to the 9-inch for the Curse. That prayer is decent, and as you said, be able to pull down Fire Slayers, Daughters of Cain Heart, the Heart of Fury, and deal with anything that comes in Khorne's priests, like Stop Blood Boil or whatever. Sorry, the Hex Gorgeous Skull. Sorry, Hex Gorgeous Skull. You want to...
Yeah, or the Wrath Axe.
the bloody corn.
Although
But
I
like,
think that's a 6. Never mind. Ignore me.
it's the hex gorges like you want to get rid of, but regardless, however you want to build, there's something kind of for your build style, which then kind of leads into, right, well, if I want to have something a bit more melee focused, you're right, the Sigmarite hammer, you have the glimmering is not bad defensively, as you said, the Grimgore is a great tool, macroscope, Brazier of Holy Flames. I don't know if I want to rely on that, but it might be a way to get around Inspiring Presence if you have multiple you need to issue.
It could
That
be cool in conjunction with the command core because I think it's technically 2 rolls, right? So if 10 guys run, you roll 10 dice. Okay, 5 guys run. Okay, now only 2 guys run. I mean, it's not bad if you're running a bunch of infantry heavy units. Because and I'm not 100% sure on the rules interactions, but I haven't seen any reason why they wouldn't overlap.
Yeah, good call, good call. And that's the kind of interesting thing is like we can now unpack this. You're talking about the tune of the Corpses Somni. You can use his command ability while in the battle shock phase. Each time a model would flee from a city's with Cities of Sigmar human unit, while it's wholly within 12 inches of this unit, roll a dice on a 4+. That model doesn't flee. The same unit cannot be affected by the same ability more than once. So,
So
does
yeah,
it
so
like you?
they're different names, right? So technically they'd be able to work. It is a small bubble because they're both 12 inches, but hey,
Does it allow you a double bite at the apple? Maybe. Could it be FAQ'd?
it's
Possibly. But right now, rules is written. It is a double shot to have a bite at the apple to stop battle shock fleeing. But it is a short bubble within 12 inches, so you're hugging those troops. But anything else you'd add on the human enhancements?
no, man. I think, like you said, you hit the nail on the head. There's some great options, and I think you're going to see a lot of different options. It's not going to be like one army where you take the exact same thing every single time.
All right, rapid fire through the Duardin. Is there a command trait and an artifact that kind of stands out to you?
Yeah, I love the fight last stuff. I think it's hilarious. The fight first, fight last. The of mighty lineage, you can get him to fight first, and then if you got like the guy that stands on stone, grudge bearer. He gets to fight first if there's a hero nearby, and then he triggers his unit to fight first. And then if you can take the artifact, you can on a 4+ something fights last. You can do some really cool things, or maybe even ally in a tree from living cities, and now there's 2 chances that fight last for the other guys. And that way you can just mollywop them every time they come into you.
Yeah, I do like that. And hey, and you know what? If you need another priest, you could always go Master of Ancient Law. For example, make your Warden King a priest if you feel like we're in a priest meta. Okay, cool.
It's some.
Cool. Why not? You do you. What are artifacts? It's surely the Book of Grudges, right? Like just from the name alone.
Oh yeah, it's pretty cool. Don't get me wrong. I think it's a really neat little trick to just kind of add you a little extra stuff going. You know, plus one hit's not amazing, but it's fine, right? And then, like I said, the gauntlets I think is a really cool thing. Like getting that extra fight last on stuff, especially with your being able to countercharge and really mess with them. You could get 3 dwarf units in on the flanks. You know, someone charges you in the front, charge both units in the flank, and you're like, "Hey, dude, that the unit of Vanguard fights last. I'm gonna smack you with 400 dwarves, and we'll see who's standing after that." Then you can do your fight twice.
The pro wrestler in me loves the pile driver there. Like I just Gargants doing suplexes,
Mhm.
dwarves doing pile drivers. I think we've got some wrestling fans over at Games Workshop. What about the elves?
The elves. I love the unparalleled duelist. I think it's the anti-zombie tech we've all been asking for. Just run that dreadlord straight into the zombies and stand there and watch them kill themselves. It's the funniest thing in the world. So every time they miss you, they take a mortal wound, and you charge with something else. The zombies, you pick up the other unit, then the zombies have to trigger into you, and they don't explode because they killed themselves. It's kind of a great little tech piece. I think we'll see it pretty commonly because zombies are tough for a lot of people to deal with. So it's a cool little thing. And then as far as artifacts go, I do love the extra range. I think that's a great option for spell casting. The Anklet of Epiphany. And I also do like the Venom Bank Blade. It's not bad. A little extra D3 mortals going through. You know, you could throw Venom Bank Blade and the Duelist together on a Black Dragon, and he's not bad. He can go into the flank. He's not really got that big of a base, so you can put him in some awkward spots too. Um, pretty interesting.
I was thinking about the Venom Blade on an assassin.
Yeah.
Like just pop that little bad boy out. Stabby, stabby.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's like basically the old trick. They used to give him the, I can't remember which sub faction it was, but they gave him the blade that just did all the work. Oh man, what's the name of that thing?
Yeah,
I think it was like one of the light cities or something. It was just an artifact that he got to do a bunch of D3 mortals on 6s.
Sort of Judgment was like the
That's
sword
what
of the
it
game.
was.
Yeah, sort of Judgment was just like meh. But but the cool thing like with the assassin is it's got 6 attacks, right? 3s and 3s, Ren 1 for 1. It pops out from an elf unit. Where did it pop out? Strike first. While this unit's within 3 inches. Oh, does it still pop out?
They might
Pop out?
They might have lost or dropped out. I remember looking at something weird about them.
Oh, that's changed because it used to pop out of a unit at the start of combat, but now while it's within 3 inches of an elf unit, it's not visible to an enemy outside of 12. It does D3 mortal wounds on 6s, and it has strike first. So actually, no, I ain't doing that because I was thinking like run an elf unit, pop the assassin out, stabby with a venom blade. Yeah, no, that's not happening. Let's just rewind the tapes. I ain't taking that assassin. Not happening.
Yeah, the poor assassins got hit pretty hard.
Poor old assassin. Here I am using my Mordheim assassin still from the free white dwarf that I got back in like the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
But you talk spells, and probably the one change we want to talk about here is the Battle Mage has lost its spell lore. So before you used to look at the War Scroll, and depending on the Battle Mage you took, it had a spell. Now, a lot of those have been transferred over, so you might recognize Fireball, Mystifying Miasma, Pale of Doom, Fierce Protection, Transmutation of Lead, Wild Form. They've all kind of been brought over, but they are some different rules, and Wild Form especially is a very different rule to what it used to be. So, Bart, you talked earlier about having 4 spells. You said something like that, where there's ones that you really want to get off. Which is the ones that are kind of drawing to you first?
Yeah, so the ones that really stand out here is Foss Protection. Ignoring modifiers is just fantastic. You throw a unit out there with a 4-up save, and I don't care if you're Ren 3 or Ren 4 coming at me. I'm still on a 4-up save, Just getting that ethereal is really, really solid. And I think that's going to be a really, really high level pick. I think you're going to see that very commonly.
Sir, can I make a suggestion?
Mm-hmm.
Drakespawn Knights.
3
up save, 10 wound idiots, unrendable, way to cause your opponent nightmares.
Steam Tank, wait. Throw a Steam Tank in there. Good luck. Have fun.
That's sweet. That's really cool. That used to be like -1 to hit the old spell. That is a massive glow up.
Yeah, 100%. The other one I really like is Pale of Doom. Pale of Doom. I think it's really good, especially if you're running a lot of guys that are shooting. Being able to turn off command points until the start of the next hero phase is really good. And even if Geminets gets nerfed into the ground, you have this option as well to basically turn things off. And what's really neat is it not only stops the all-out defense, it stops the inspiring presence as well. So you kind of get a lot of value out of it.
Yeah, that's cool. So you could like double down with having Geminids, and although it's a little different, you could Geminids and Pale of Doom, or you could save the points and just go Pale of Doom. That's sweet, especially right now where a lot of people are taking like Command Entourage or Warlord to get an extra spell as opposed to an extra artifact.
Yeah, and then the third one that's kind of okay is Wild Form. 3d6 charge is pretty solid, but I kind of see myself as a moving castle. So overextending like that, I don't know if I'm really gonna want to use that as a technique. You know what I mean? When you send one of your pieces out that far, I mean, because you're really gonna send it. It's probably 10 inches realistically that you're trying to get out there. Now he's not in the bubble of 5-up wards, +1 to save, all that stuff, especially for humans, because I think it's human only for Wild Form. Yeah. So you kind of lose a little bit of the maneuverability or the bonuses from it, should I say?
Firewall's a bit of a horde clearer as well. Like you talked about the zombie tech, and that's obviously not the only, right? Gits, for example, those 36 blogger squigs, you're at 36 dice doing mortals on 6s. So that's not bad.
No,
and they've got poor bravery. They can't take inspiring presence. So it's a lot of dead squigs.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and like I said, the lore's fine. And I mean, if you're going heavy drops, you know, you can grab a couple different things and kind of cast the spells that you need to get you through the game. You know what I mean? You can, all right, this one's good against elite units, and this one's good against hordes. You know?
Twin-tailed comet doesn't stand out to me. That feels like the old. You know what? I'm actually not a big fan of twin-tailed comets in general. Um,
Yeah, I think you're gonna get your 10 bravery from Hammer Hall if you really want it. So there's no
Rain,
reason to take the spell.
yeah, and Raid of Jade, is okay. Like on a 5+, like
It needs to be on like a 4 or even a 3. The only thing it's worth on is the Griffin, and even only if he's like down to 2 wounds. And how often do you have a Griffin running around with 2 wounds remaining on it? You know, so I just don't think. I think it's gonna fall short. It needs to be like a 4 or a 3+ for you even to think about shaking it. You know what I mean? And that way, it's like, okay, cool. If it's a 4+ and my hero's really low, I got a chance to bring him back.
you just reminded me, another change Free Guild people is that we lost the mount trait that allowed us to come back on a 2+ with a couple of wounds left. So your Griffin isn't as durable as it used to be. You can't be as kamikaze, and then it comes back on 2+ and you're like, heal it up, and like, you know, you bring like Tempest's and Living City had a heal spell. You can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
So I was just thinking about I was just thinking about Ethereal on that 2+ Steam Tank Commander.
You know, a really funny thing that I noticed looking through this book is the griffins for the battle mage and the hero are different griffins. They have a slightly different attack profile.
It used to be like that before. The
Yeah,
the wizard griffin is a little bit lesser than the.
it's like 1 damage less. It's like it's the one that flies a little better but doesn't fight as good.
No, it used to have a really cool. I used to use it as the aura of glory to get the boosts, but no, that's gone. Uh, we will adapt. What about the other ones? So you've got the prayer lord. If you want to get a priest into your army, you could absolutely get yourself a rune lord. If you want to go into the dark elf, you've got the sorceress on dragon and the sorceress on foot. Do any of these kind of stand out to you? Like I would consider bringing one or both into my list.
Um, yeah, the wizard for elves. That's kind of my mind immediately goes to this. I pick up a sorceress. I take the tenebral blades, however you say that, and I go, hey, you don't get an armor save anymore. So Catacross and the OVR that are just stacking saves. I've got 10 executioners here or 10 Drakespawn knights that just pick up a whole unit of OVR. You're like, wow, fantastic. So basically, the way it works is you pick a unit, and that unit for all their attacks, you don't get armor saves against them. Now that being said, they can still all out defense, but most of the good units to put this on already have red one anyways, so it
Mm.
just cancels the all out defense at that point in time. So you're basically you're just chewing through anything. It's insane how much damage you put out if you can actually get the Thunderbolt blades. And I think that what we were talking about earlier with the GHB is what helps you get the spell off, and then they just go off into stuff.
It is short range though, at range 9. So are you thinking about this on a sorceress on dragon, or are you thinking about Umbral Spell Portal to kind of increase the range, or are you just gonna suicide run this sorceress into 9 and just
No, no,
sweet?
no. It targets the elf unit.
Oh, it's the elf unit. Sorry,
Yeah, so you don't even have to move away.
I'm
Yeah, it's
thinking of the
insane.
I'm thinking of the old Anvil Guard Huck Huron
Mhm.
where you used to put it on and then your gyrocopters would just like blast this into oblivion.
Now, now you just put it on your brick, and I really like it in Misthaven because you put it on something. Maybe it's cavalry. We'll say move it 2d6, and then it runs off and goes charge and just picks things up. I mean, you're talking about like you can take a 170 point unit and it'll pick up Kragnos.
Who would you put it on in an elf?
The best bet is executioners, but Drakespawn Knights are also fantastic options. They're 140 points for 5 of them, and being able to just have that point where it's like it might not just insta kill a unit, but it's probably going to do around 20 damage to a unit. And who can just sit there and just take 20 damage? A lot of the problematic units that people are like, oh, I just don't know how to get through, are things that really heavy high, like they just save stack off the like crazy, and this just stops it.
And what's cool as well is the sorceress can still stabby a unit of like dread spears to get the +2 to cast, which +2 to cast that makes it a 5 or makes it a much harder to unbind. And does your opponent want to use one of their primal magic dice to remove that particular spell when you might have Merciless Blizzard, Hoarfrost, or other potent spells? It's a tough choice.
Oh yeah, I think, like I said, I think the magic's fantastic here. But yeah, jumping into dwarves. You know, I was looking at these earlier, and nothing really like they're all like solid. If I remember properly, because it's what +1 to hit for weapons. But again, these are
Yep.
prayers, and I just hate how unlucky prayers feel sometimes. You know, you're still just re-rolling a 3.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, you still can do curse and you can still do other things. I guess if you're gonna go into it, I'm probably going the Rune of Wrath and Ruin for the 5 up. The enemy
Yeah,
takes a mortal wound, and then if it suffers 3 mortal wounds, yada yada yada. Like, you can ignore positive modifiers to save rolls. I think that's interesting, but you're obviously building into um, that. You can't just take an independent priest and then just like go be free. You've got to build around it.
yeah. And I mean, I think the odds on it are kind of low. So it was like, it's like one of those things you might, like you said, you might just take 3 units of dwarves to get the battle tactic to have them all fight together at some point in time. And you're just kind of fishing, waiting for this thing to go off. And then, okay, cool. Now I can strike.
Yeah, I'm curious to have this conversation with a dwarf person because once you start building around dwarves, like all of this starts to get unlocked, and you're like, okay, there's some really cool things. But for a human focused force, it's like, eh. But I tell you what, we didn't talk about that I really like is sap strength,
Hmm.
because we did lose the Frostheart Phoenix being able to subtract 1 to wound rolls for an enemy within 18 on a casting value of 6. Like, okay, like we lost the Frost Phoenix, but that's actually not too bad. Usually, it's only 1 or 2 units I want to kind of hit with the -1 anyway, so
Yeah.
it's not bad.
No, I think it's pretty solid. I mean, and you know, going back to the elf lore as well. I mean, Umbral Hex is hilarious because you can also just bring a Charybdis where they don't get to ignore battle shock. Now they're throwing 2d6 dice at a battle shock that they can't ignore. It's not terrible.
They're so annoying, those Charybdis and
Yeah,
the
imagine
Hydra.
killing one dragon and then they're like, "Oh no, I've got to roll 2d6 at a dragon now. My, +1. Oh crap, I just picked up the whole unit of dragons because they shot one off a board. That's it."
So annoying.
Yeah.
So annoying. Anything on spells, or I think we're kind of cool. Like, there's a lot of great options. I don't think there's too many auto includes. Definitely the human side, there's a lot of good spells. 3 maybe, kind of like I'd be thinking about. Um, Obviously, it's competing with Hoarfrost, Rupture, and Blizzard right now as well. So unless you are going, like I said, Warlord or Command Entourage, you got some tough choices to make.
Yep, I agree. I think you'll probably stay with those, but I think it's an actual competitive lore, and it'll be good in the next GHB as well. I mean, that's what you want to see is longevity out of a book. So
Yeah, there's a lot of great spells, and even when we lose Hoarfrost and Blizzard, you're going to still have a good spell lore. So, then they're and you know what? They're also not that hard to cast. So there wasn't really any 9s, a couple of 8s here and there, but a lot of them were 6s and 7s, which is quite fair for us.
yeah, definitely.
We do have sub factions. There are 11 of them. So here is 6 of the 11, and we'll go to the second page with the others. So, Hammerhall, there's 2 versions of Hammerhall. As I mentioned, there is the Gairan version and there's the Akshi version. Your Living City, Grey Water Fastness, Hallow Heart, and Tempest Eye. Of the 6 here currently on screen as a human player, which are the ones that kind of stand out to you and why?
I think a lot of people when they first opened this book got really excited about Grey Water Fastness because you get all out attack 3 times. The more I looked at it, I think it's too much of an investment. I think it's just not going to happen as often. But I think it's still a cool thing. I think, if they bring the points counts down on cannons, I'm all about it, man. Let's just all out attack some cannons. Maybe 1 unit of Fusiliers.
What
Go-
I'll pause you though.
yeah.
What about if it was the 1 or 2 units of Fusiliers plus your Ogre Wall Hulk? Would you see, like, having 2 War Hulks plus a Fusiliers unit? Is that a decent investment?
I think it's pretty expensive. I don't think you get enough out of it. I think you have to rely on the units to do all your damage to begin with. And it's hard putting that much points into because those are heroes, right?
Yeah, they're leaders. So your Fusilier major on Warhawk is 150. So if you took 2 of them, you're at 300. If you then go the Fusiliers, they are 150 points. So you reinforce it an extra, that's 300. Double reinforce it because one of your units is a free steel helm. That's now 450. So you're looking at almost 1,000 points, or not far off 1,000 points to get. Like, is that worth the investment, and how are you protecting all of that shooting?
Yeah, exactly. And I think though what you'll end up doing is if you do take Greywater, you'll probably just take a 30 block and 2 10s. You know what I mean? Or something along those lines. Maybe it's 30 and 2 cannons if cannons get cheap. That way you get your +1 to hit and wound for your 30 block, and then you're running the 2 cannons to get you the extra stuff as well. And I think just having that hero the same points cost as 10 Fusiliers, I just always take 10 Fusiliers, you know?
Yeah, it's hard when you look at the 2 profiles at the same points value, but if the Fusiliers go up, which is not, if you look at, again, their competitor, which is Bow Snakes, you look at, I suppose Sentinels went down a little bit. You could see a world where they're 160, 170,
Yeah, 100%.
potentially. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, it's just to me, it just doesn't hit the mark exactly. You know what I mean? But again, with points changes, you can unlock all kinds of different things.
And folks, I'm saying this not to, like, ruin your ideas. It's more like, I don't want you to go and buy all the Fusiliers and then you're disappointed because you got 60 and they've now gone up and you can't run a competitive list. So do tread carefully in the water, or go buy them all and I'll go buy them off you secondhand at half price when you put them up on the buy and sell. I'm
Yeah,
cool. I'm cool either way.
and get you a big old bucket of dice if you're running 60, because you'll be rolling for days.
So Grey Water's fastest, great for shooting builds,
Mhm.
and obviously issuing all our attack 3 times in shooting phase. Pretty obvious the benefit there.
Yep. And then me as a big Halahart player, I've been playing a ton of Halahart. The first thing I did when I opened this book was look at Halahart. And I actually like the way they did this. I was sad that you lose your extra cast, but it is what it is. That lore is too good. If you get 2 casts, I mean, it'd be a little disgusting. I like that you get a 3d6 roll. And, if you're above a 10, so if you get the spell off on a high value, there's a cost to it. And I
I
think they
don't
should
like that.
incorporate that. You don't?
I don't like. I thought that was too heavy. Like, if you look at the equivalent on Slaves to Darkness, which is Kabbalist, they don't take a penalty by casting on a. I know what they're trying to do here. So in the old Hello Heart rules, you get one of your heroes to take D3 damage or D6 damage, I think it was, and it would give you a boost to everyone's casting. I just think the penalty, if you're running a whole bunch of, let's say, battle mages, like, I can't afford to go D3 mortal wounds on those idiots.
Yeah, but I don't think it's as bad as you think it is now because we do have the command course. So they're going to heal up 3 wounds off of 3 different units every single time. And if you don't have damaged units, you're just healing your heroes back up.
So what you're saying basically is, if you're going to do Hello Heart, that command corp has to come.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, because if not, you're just going to end up killing your heroes by accident.
Yeah, yeah. And, like, I'm not taking Illuminat to try to protect it. I think having Hurricanums is going to be too expensive. So you're going to have some smalls. And I love the idea for 3 dice.
Mhm.
Yeah. I don't know. I just look at the D3 and it makes me nervous.
No, I get it. Yeah, 100%. But the new hero, that's only 90 points is 6 wounds. So, the odds of him dying on 2 isn't too bad.
Yeah, I think you've got to have the Gobblepalooza, aka the corp, to protect them.
Yeah. Jumping into some of the old goodies, the Tempest Eye, I think Tempest Eye kind of fell short. You can only bring 400 points of KO now. That's technically the way that it works because
Yep.
they really got away from borrowing power out of other books, and so your 400 points can retreat and shoot. Okay, it's not super amazing. I couldn't even think of anything to ally, to be honest.
What's interesting, actually, because, like, I used to run Tempest Eye a lot, but I would run a lot of Pistoliers and I'd run a lot of Outriders, and they don't have that. So who do I want to retreat and shoot? I don't know.
Yeah,
Outside of KO, like, inside my book.
I mean maybe the Fusiliers if you somehow get them stuck in by accident. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like walking into a dark alley and, like, I'm surrounded by a whole bunch of villains. What's the best martial arts to defend myself against villains? Well, don't go down the dark alleyway to begin with. I feel like building a whole strategy around getting out of combat. Let's just not get there.
Yeah, You know what would actually be not terrible, and again, like you're saying, let's just not get there, is the elves on the chariots. Okay, maybe I do want to retreat and shoot those guys so they can stop tagging me. You know, I don't know.
Yeah,
Just
I'm
throwing something
struggling.
out there because they're not a bad shooting profile. So if they're allowed to just retreat and shoot over and over again, it's not terrible.
Yeah, I'm struggling on this one. Maybe chat, you tell me in the comment section if you see some connections, but I'm certainly struggling on why I would pick this sub faction out of the 10 others. Living City, I think, is sweet. And by the way, yes, to your point, KO is no longer coalition, so you can't go above your 400 allies. Living City, again, Sylvaneth can't go over as well. What are your thoughts on Living City and the two Hammer Halls?
Living City's all right. I think it's just again being you can't borrow as much power as previously, so I think it takes that hit as well. So I don't think that's gonna be another one we see very often. But I do think the Hammer Hall Gyron is going to be one that we're going to see pretty often. That extra, you can include one additional Cities Sigmar reinforced unit in your army, which means that can be a double reinforced unit. So you can end up with 3 units of 30 steel helms if you want, and two, a couple units of command corps just standing behind them, healing them up. And your priest standing there that goes, okay, cool, everyone gets 5 aboard. And then your wizard that goes, I'm going to give everyone +1 to their armor save as well. And it's pretty hard to move that off an objective at that point in time, especially when they're bravery 10.
Yeah, I don't mind that. The other version of Hammerhall has always gotten me kind of curious because I've always wanted to run the Magister of Hammerhall because I've got this idea of converting a Balthazar Gelt with the gold mask as my Magister, but I've never been impressed with the War Scroll, and the War Scroll doesn't really benefit me very much in cities. So assuming that it doesn't get upgraded, and who knows if there will be an update to Stormcast or when that happens, but the 2 orders instead of 1 is an interesting piece where I don't mind that.
No, I think it's good. I think it'll help you kind of play around some different things. And I think, Hammer Hall, both of these Hammer Halls will play very similarly. Obviously, the Garana one's going to be a little more infantry heavy, but I think the way that his pulse works, that Advantage Fire Strike pulse, is he gives +1 to hit for cities units as well. So there could be a world where he moves and he's giving everybody +1 to hit when his pulse goes out. And then maybe that's enough to push something over. I'm sure someone will come up with some cool techie thing that really pushes the envelope somehow.
Because he's not coalition anymore, my problem is that some of the other benefits of Stormcast very specific. So you're paying a tax to revive models, and if I can't bring a Magister and a Stormcast unit to kind of benefit from that, I am paying a lot for the Magister War Scroll in this. That's my gripe.
Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah, I think you're really just taking them for the extra cast and then the +1 to cast. I think that's it.
Yeah, it's competing with the Battle Mage on
Or-
Griffin for that kind of magic wizard, and the Griffin's going to do more damage probably.
Mhm.
I'd have to sit down and do the maths, but I feel like I've just been not impressed.
Yeah, I'm with you.
But I want it to work. I do
Oh
truly
yeah.
want it to work. Trust me. Like I've tried. The other ones, you've got some interesting ones. You've got Lethus, Excelsius, Misthaven, Settlers Gain, and Vindicarum. Where are you at? And
I feel like
I've
this
said
this
already, like my Vindicarum is my favorite city of all time.
Yeah, it's really neat. I feel like this is like the spicy page over here. So you've got Lethis, being able to stop all the ward saves is pretty neat, especially also turning all your heroes into priest. It's pretty neat. There's some cool stuff you can do. That means you're getting heals and curses and stuff that are just annoying, basically. You know what I mean? And
But
then
is there
go
a
ahead.
Stormcast priest that you'd want to bring in? Because the number one Stormcast priest is the Lord Relictor, but the Lord Relictor can't translocate in Cities of Sigmar. So is it worth taking the Mortar's Embrace and
All right, here's my spice for you. You know how everybody are there's so many models coming back on the board. I think the Lord Exorcist is a priest. Maybe you just bring a couple of those guys and they just stop things from being brought back within 9.
okay?
You know what I mean? Just basically stops Soul Blight from being able to bring models back, stops zombies from being able to add to their units, stops OBR from adding more and more discard as long as you're close enough. I mean, there's definitely some cool stuff there.
I'm gonna break your heart.
No, didn't do
It's
it.
a it's a wizard, not a priest.
Ah, I thought he was. I thought he was. All right.
I think only the Knight Relictor and the Lord Relictor are the only Stormcast priests, and I don't think that their War Scroll is strong enough to want me to invest the 120, 145 points.
Yeah.
It's a cool trick.
Especially if we can get an auto dispel for another hero. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think I'm on the same page that if you can't do that. But yeah, I mean, obviously, if we go to Excelsius, that's one of my favorites. I love Excelsius. You get extra wound on your monsters. All the cavalry are doing mortal wounds as well because they don't have a ton of Ren. They're like Ren 1 and 2. If you countercharge them, great. They're Ren 3. Okay, now we're talking. But then being able to roll a bunch of dice at the end of the turn and do some extra mortal wounds. A 10-man unit does an extra 5 mortal wounds. And, how do you normally beat cavalry like that? You normally pen them in. This gives you consistent a clock, basically. This is like better Nurgle. You're just going to keep doing damage and they have a 3-up save.
Kind of taps into the Black Knights in Soulblight a little bit, where they charge and they do a bunch of mortal wounds. It's just your sequence is a little different. One thing I'm curious to hear from you, being a fellow Hallowheart man, and I'm a Hallowhearter, is Settlers Gain. Now, it's another wizard faction. So if you were building a wizard faction, which one do you like better, Settlers Gain, or are you building Hallowheart?
Probably Settlers Grain, but not 100% on that. I think Hallowheart will be better once we leave this GHB. I think when we get out of this GHB, I'd rather take the extra 3d6 cast. That way I don't primal miscast, because as of right now, it's just easier to get the +1 to cast and just say, all right, cool, I'm not going to primal, and I'll throw a couple primal dice at it. But when you're throwing 3d6, the odds of you hitting a 1 and then trying to throw a primal on top of that, it's a lot more likely you're going to blow yourself up. So I think right now Settlers is better, but I think eventually Hallowheart will take the cake.
It is usually, like, I'm looking at the Settlers Gain as well, and it obviously allows you to bring Lumineth into the fold. And the Law Seeker is a great little piece, but that won't synergize very well because you won't be within 3 inches of a friendly Lumineth. I'm struggling like which Lumineth hero I'd want in my city's army. And because it's coalition, I can't even take Teclis or anything. So it'd have to be someone within 400 points. I don't know which hero I'd want that would benefit
I
me.
can't remember his. Yeah, I was gonna say I can't remember his name right now, but he's got the auto cast on a 9 once per game.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
He's not bad. He also counts as 10. I think you can not set him up. He's the Lore Seeker if I remember properly. He's a pretty good little tech beast. You can just drop him down, counts as 10 on an objective, and he gets one thing out. Maybe Geminids, throw Geminids through the enemy army and just start pewing away. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Obviously, the +1 to cast is nice, especially if you have, and this is one of the things that I found in my Gits list lately, is I'm running a list with like 5 wizards. And what it allows me to do, if I get consistency across the board, there's only so many primal dice, so they can go for the Hoarfrost or the Merciless Blizzard. And by getting consistency with the rest of my spells, I get off lots of spells. And sure, like I put my primals into one spell, but I find that I get most of my spells off. So I probably tend to like the +1 to cast more than the 3d6. Just I get nervous with the 10+.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, I'm with you there. I think the one thing though that we're kind of forgetting is, even though Settlers Game used to be the Lumineth faction, you can still just put Lumineth in any of these factions. Same thing with KO, because it's no longer limited to 1 and 4. You just get your normal allied abilities.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, the allies used to be in addition to your coalition, but you're right. You can do Daughters of Cain, Fireslayers, IDK, KO, Lumineth, Stormcast, Sylvaneth. So really, the only one you can't ally in is Seraphon. Seraphon's the only one.
Yeah, I don't know why, but I'm sure there's reasons in the lore somewhere.
I think only Stormcast are the ones who are able to ally with and because back in the day, I remember first edition, I'd have 4 Hellstorm rocket batteries with a little Skink Star Master given a bunch of re-rolls to like these 4 Hellstorm rocket batteries. So paying for the sins of the past.
Yeah, it makes sense. And then
Miss
I love
Tarvin.
Misthaven. Yeah. Dude, it's fantastic. Just being able to move and reposition stuff is just so good. I also really like it with the cavalry splash because you can just Misthaven, like we said, a couple units that are all cavalry and they're moving 2d6, and you're like, all right, cool. Here's my spell on them. Now you don't get an armor save when they come in, and so they're moving 7 inches plus their normal move. You can give them an extra 3-inch move. and then they're charging. I mean, they're crossing the board. It's pretty strong.
Yeah, I don't mind that. There's some good stuff in there, some good movement tech. Because it used to be like half your army would come off from the side of the board, and if it was elf kind of keyworded, but there's a lot more consistency. I don't mind that. I don't mind the Misthaven one. I really don't mind that.
Yeah, I think it's solid, and I think it helps you fix some positional errors too as well.
And that's probably one call out, right? Is that there's not a lot of movement tech outside of, say, Living Cities and Misthaven. So if you find that your troops are too slow, if you can't move around the board very quickly, like there's no teleports, there's no deep striking, there's nothing outside of that. It's your Misthaven and it's your Living City that brings that to the fold. Obviously, Misthaven is more in game where you can kind of reposition and move around a bit more, as opposed to Living City, which is that deployment piece where you can set up and flank your opponent.
Yeah, definitely.
What about Vindicarum? I'm a fan. I love this. I love this because I'm a mad lad with the flagellants. Where are
I do
you
love
at?
that you can rally in combat. I think it's hilarious. I mean, that's pretty solid right there. And then if you really want to be the mad lad that runs flagellants, just give him that 5-up ward from the Pope, and you'll have a good old time. It's like zombie light. You know what I mean? It's not quite as good as zombies, but you're like, cool. I've got a bunch of dudes that are just angry, swinging some flails around.
I will call out though. I think one big difference though, and I just want to triple check this before I maybe put my foot into it, is one of the key differences between the differences between flagellant spam and zombie spam is that flagellants come in units of 10 as opposed to zombies who come in units of 20. So when you start double reinforcing zombies, that's 60, while I can only maximum go into 30. So being able to do the output and grow them back is so much harder with flagellants. So don't think this is just a rinse and repeat. It's very different.
Yeah, it does not have the same output, but it is a really cool thing. And honestly, they have a decent attack profile. Like it's not terrible, and you can Horfrost it too. Have all kinds of
Yeah.
fun.
And they are flagellants are battle line if you take the matriarch of the Great Wheel as well. So, but I probably wouldn't go full flagellants. I'd still probably want some shooting behind the lines, some objective control pieces, because the
I
flagellants
mean,
just
they're great screens.
yeah. I can see
Fantastic.
a whole bunch of like MSU plus one or two big blocks.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah.
Anything else you'd say about the sub factions? I guess like when you start list building, the value of units start unlocking. Like for example, right, flagellants in any other type of sub faction, they're a cheap screen. They're okay. They're chaff. They're annoying. In Vindicarum, they're supercharged. The same is true of a lot of the units, right? You talk about the knights. Chuck the knights into Excelsius, and holy crap, look at the strength now of the knights.
Yep. Yeah. 100%. Yeah, I think it kind of points you in the right direction. And a lot of these lists, like once we get into lists, the first list I wrote it in a way that you could throw it into 4 different of these sub factions and play it different ways in each one.
Yeah, like you talked earlier about the gun line in Greywater. That's just way more obvious. Before we get into your lists, we will quickly go over the grand strategies, battle tactics, and your one battalion. Grand strats point of view, do you like any of these grand strategies in the current General's Handbook 2023? And will you be picking this over like, spellcasting savant or, whatever the other ones are? Or is something here stand out for you and why?
Yeah, I really like them. The grand strategies that are kind of popping out to me are banners held high. So it's just have more banners and totems count as a banner than your opponent at the end of the game. So basically, if you're alive and hanging in there, you normally get your grand strat. It's pretty easy to do. And then the other one I like is Reclaim for Sigmar. Get 1 unit in each quarter. You could throw something like a gyrocopter in each quarter and just have them sit there and be like, "You want to stop my grand strategy, or do you want to play the game?" So it gives you kind of some opportunities because grand strategies are so important right now. Some armies have some very very easy ones, and some armies have some very tough ones. And I think these unlock more play from you. So now you're kind of ahead of the game because you're not having to play into a grand strategy, which is really neat.
Yeah. I will say that your bravery is often quite low in this army, so having some inspiring presence, ability to keep that one banner around, or that totem as well. Any way you could possibly do that is going to help you get that grand strategy, so keep that in mind. But you're right, like I think banners held high is a good one. Hold the high ground sounds like it's good, but often it's a melee scrum in the middle, and unfortunately that's going to make it hard to kind of clear out the middle.
Yeah, it's
And I
pretty
hate
tough.
And I hate the top one. I hate anything that forces me to do 4 battle tactics from a book.
No, it's and then this book has great battle tactics, but it's just very hard to do.
I just don't want to be in a position where, like, I've got, like, let's say, magical supremacy, or I've got something from the GHB which I can do right now, but I got to choose something from my book because my grand strategy is tied to it.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you on that one. And
Before,
for
but
you,
yeah,
okay.
go on.
I
I
was
was
gonna
just saying
say,
before.
I was gonna say the banners held high. Don't forget that if you've got a command core, I know I keep harping on them. You want to bring 3 models back, and you've already lost your, your triple reinforced unit. You just bring 3 banners back right there. You know what I mean? If you've got 1 guy remaining, okay, let me add 3 banners to it. Grand strat
Yes.
completed.
Yep. Good comment. What I was going to say is I'm pretty sure the Pope is a totem, if I remember correctly. I'm just quickly going to check the war scroll.
I know the
Mm.
command core has one for
Oh,
sure.
no. The Pope isn't a totem.
Yeah, it's just the command core that has one. So you get the command core, and then most of your list, you're looking at maybe 7 or 8 of them, and then a lot of the enemy armies don't have any, which is kind of fantastic. So
Yeah, really cool. What about the battalion, before the battle tactics? Let's just quickly talk battalion. In most cases, I'm guessing not going to be useful.
I think it's a very niche thing. Again, if they reduce the points of that one hero, I think it might be worth. If you want to be a 2-drop and you were like, hey, I have exactly this, and then I also have a 1-drop, or maybe I just throw a cannon in. If they reduce the points on cannon, you could possibly throw this thing in, get a unified Slayers on it, and hey, man, I'm a 2-drop. This is great.
Yeah, and I mean, you can take a unit of 3 units of either the Fusiliers or the Steel Helm, so you've got an option, which is great, but it is forcing you to take the Ogre War Hulk, at least one of them. You do have an option to take a second one, it's optional, and you do have to take a Great Cannon. So if you were building, let's say, a Grey Water Fastness, and you were going to already build this, awesome.
Yeah.
But that's already expensive. What's that? At pure minimum, if you did a Grey Water build, let's say you took, like, it's almost 1,000 points.
Yeah, exactly. It's quite a bit.
Cool. From your experience and just your thoughts, like, what battle tactics are standing out for you? Are there ones that you use more than others? And probably more importantly as well, right now, it's very hard for that turn 1 battle tactic. Is there one that you like for turn 1?
Again, yeah, turn 1 is a little tough. I mean, I do like. Honestly, none of these are really, really good for turn 1. So I think you're looking at like edges or outside your territory almost every single time, and trying to build into that, and just the basic GHB ones. That being said, if you're bringing in, or if you're bringing enough infantry guys, you can always suppressing fire. If you think you're going to kill that unit, great, you can suppressing fire that unit and then finish it off with something. Or I think if you shoot it in combat, it counts as being suppressed as well. So I think they're good. If it's only a 10-man unit, just throw everything into that one unit, get your battle tactic. Okay, cool, we're done. And at least it gives you options, right? And I think the suppressing fire one, to bring full arms to bear, is probably one of the tougher ones. And it seems a little risky because, again, there's a lot of dice going on, depending on what their bravery is, how many guys you kill. It's kind of hard to calculate that while you're playing a game or a higher level game, just like off the top of your head. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can see suppressing fire as something that seems easy, and you fail by 1 or 2 wounds, and it's going to take a little bit of maths and good understanding of what output you can expect, and ensuring you pick the right target in order to take it out.
Yep, I fully agree.
What about raise the banner? You've been talking for the last almost hour and a half about the benefits of the command corp. You are I should call you the herald from the command corp. Do you see this one being scored very often? Are you putting these guys on objectives, or are they chasing troops around?
Well, I think the whole army's kind of sticking together almost all the time. So it's just like a moving castle. It plays almost like Techless, but except for moving more. You know what I mean? So I think this is possible. I think once they take something, maybe a very weak investment from someone, they go first. They just toe into an objective. Cool. I'm going to move my guys on it, and I'm going to auto run my banners up, and now I took it over. So I think it's a very easy battle tactic that's very doable. I think you'll probably get this one 50 to 60% of games. I think it's pretty common.
Do you think there are two other battle tactics, by the way, one being Duardin focused, one being Elf focused. As a human kind of player, are you someone who is drawn to either of those two? And it's like, well, scoring battle tactics is important. I'm now going to bring a Duardin unit in to get that Iron Might, or an Elf unit to get Strike Without Warning. Or is that not good enough or not easy enough that you're not going to tweak your list just to get that particular battle tactic?
I think in this GHB, I do like the Strike Without Warning. Like I said, I do like throwing a Sorceress, and then maybe 2 units of what do you call them, Drakespawn Knights, and then a Chariot as well. Cool. All 3 of them have a chance to charge. If you've got something already locked up and it's a really easy charge, you just walk them up, and I just got to roll 3s. That's a pretty easy thing to do.
And there was an Elf thing that you could re-roll charges if the general hit a successful charge, right? That was one of the.
That was a human one, yeah.
Was that human? Okay,
that was
right.
human.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, I think charging 3 Elves isn't that bad. I almost feel that's more consistent than trying to get the suppressing fire order. It's just, or even kill 3 enemy units with your shooting bays. I think those are more niche than actually getting those. I think if I'm bringing Elf units to do this, I think I'm just planning this in my mind, letting them get stuck into me, and then kind of hitting it on the flank. And basically my punchback is going to be, hey, I'm doing Strike Without Warning.
Yeah, I actually agree wholeheartedly. I think they are much easier to do than the you're right, the return fire. I think it's a risky play.
And I think Mount the Charge is really good too, especially with all these mounted units that are very good in this book. Just again, it's a good turn 1, turn 2 battle tactic. They don't, they put a screen on it. Cool, my cavalry just runs up, charges into them, kills that unit. I control the objective, and now there's only cavalry guys on that objective.
Yeah, you've got to make sure that it's only cavalry. So make sure that you didn't try to sneak on a couple of extra like steel helms just to ensure that you secure it off a monster. Or you don't redeploy onto it for whatever reason. You're just gonna be, if you're mindful, yeah, that's not a too hard of a one to score.
It's also a thing where like say my cavalry got stuck in, right? Or like tagged by something, and they have a foot hero on an objective. I just retreat my 5 cavalry out, grab the objective, and complete a battle tactic. You don't have to complete charge.
I was literally about to say, then that complements the current General's Handbook really well by bait and switch, where like you either hit a charge and then you kind of retreat and then you get some other things to charge. So there's a couple little combinations there that work quite nicely.
Yeah, and I think this book plays really well around that. You have a lot of options, like the bait and switch, and I think battle tactics should be easier in this book because of how many options you have.
Yeah, there's a lot of good options.
For humans, let me caveat.
Yeah, this discussion with you is going to be a lot, I don't say nicer, but we've got more options as humans. Like when you look at what's changed in the old book, Duardin didn't get anything extra. Elves only lost things. They got no new units. They only lost a lot of their choices. So if you are building an elf focused list, it's a lot of like the same, like what you already had. It's just minor tweaks here and there. But humans had such a huge glow up that for me, I'm super excited. I'd be curious to see how the elves and the Duardin players are feeling after the changes. And who knows, maybe there'll be updates to them later on through different expansions.
Definitely.
Anything else you'd say, Bart, on this one, or should we get into your 2 lists?
Now let's go into them.
Cool.
I'm sure we'll bring up battle tactics again.
So we've talked a lot of theory here, and I recognize there's a lot of information and there's a lot of units to discuss and the benefits and the synergies and the combinations. So Bart's put together 2 lists that he's been practicing, trialing, and has some initial thoughts. It doesn't mean that these lists are the only way that you can run the list. Obviously, if you love your Ogre Warhawks and you want to run 6 of them, you do you. run them to your heart's content. These are just some examples how we put the theory into practice, and a list that you might take to a tournament, but by no means is it the only way. So the first list is a Hammerhall Gyra list, which is banners held high. There is no triumph because it's straight on the 2K on the nose. You do have the Matriarch of the Great Wheel. You have 2 War Forges, one having Blizzard, one having Hoarfrost with the Shemtech artifact. You've also got the Freeguild Marshal and Relic Envoy, which is the general with the Masters of Ballistics. You have a unit of Freeguild Command Corp, a unit of double reinforced Fusiliers, two units of Steel Helms just reinforced singularly, and a unit of Steel Helms double reinforced, a unit of the Cavaliers, and then Geminids and Gravetide to wrap this up at 146 wounds. What's this list all about? How does it work? What's the combinations? Like, what are you doing with this list?
This list is really complicated. We're going to walk forward and stand on circles. That's it. We're going to go pew pew, and we're going to stand around with a big pile of dudes just standing in the middle. I think this is a good starting list. I think it's a good list that you could pull something out of the box and come up with this. And you can cut certain parts of this list and build it differently and add some elves, add some dwarves, whatever you want to do to make it your own. And just kind of build around that. So basically, the Pontifex is giving your whole army a 5-up ward. The Warforger, one of them is going to cast Hoarfrost or Blizzard, depending on if they're close, and then the other one goes, cool. Everybody else gets +1 to save. And then you've got your little Marshal that's giving out once per game. Every unit counts as 2 models on an objective, which is insane. You have Bravery 10 as long as you have 10 or more. So most of the time, the unit's going to be able to receive that. And he gets a 4-up ward from the Freeguild Court. Also, the Freeguild Court, and he's getting you your 4th order as well. So the only thing I'd say about this list is it's a little short on orders. I did throw in Geminids and Gravetide just to kind of give you some other little options in case you didn't want to cast something else, or you really didn't know what you wanted to do. But I think there are some really cool options. You got double reinforced Fusiliers, and one of your Warforgers will probably honestly be just casting the new curse spell on them. So all 6s to hit count as mortal wounds. So even if you're shooting at something tough, you're going to do 10 mortal wounds to it. That's if nothing goes through.
That's the Warforger's base War Scroll spell. That's the I can't think of the name off the top of my head. I'm trying to quickly scroll to the page.
Oh yeah, I cannot remember the name of it either.
But that's the one on the War Scroll, because that wasn't discussed on the spell lore. That's the Blazing Weapons. So Blazing Weapons, casting value of 7, range of 12. It is only for cities humans as well, so you can't put it on a shooting unit of, say, your elves or your Iron Drakes, which would be crazy. But it also is worth calling out that if you if you use the spell, if you use the +1.
Yeah, if you do the save, you can't cast any spells. So you either cast a spell or you do the save. And so in the current GHB that we're in right now, this is a good opportunity to maybe go with a 4-drop or a 2-drop, which gives you a pretty decent chance at going second. So now what you're doing is you're choosing one of your Warforges to get 2 cast. The other one's going to give you your bonus. So that maybe you'll say turn 1, I want a Hoarfrost and I want 6s do mortals on my units. Or I throw out Geminids and 6s do mortals. Whatever you want. Gives you a lot of different little options, and you don't have to take these in the spells or think that they're the best. I just threw some good ones in here, kind of show you that you can play with the points a bit and kind of rearrange some stuff.
It's also worth noting as well, the Warforger gets +1 to cast as well. So if you put it into Settler's Gain, that'd be a +2 to cast. Or obviously, it's going to help you kind of bridge the gap, especially with your Primal Magic dice. So 7 +1 plus your Primal dice, you're in good stead to get that one off if you need it.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's just a good template to start out and figure out where you're going. And like I said, you can run this as many different sub-factions. You could drop the double reinforced Steel Helms and the endless spells and kind of rotate and grab some more heroes. Maybe the Cavalier hero to go with it, or maybe you throw in some elves and you could go Mist Haven. You could go really anything you want. You could go Lethus to stop them from getting a ward save if you want to do that. That way your Fusiliers do even more damage. And I think that's one of the cool things about this book is like a list like this that can template fit into a lot of different cities is pretty nice.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing, right? Is that you can take this list, try it out in a couple of different cities, and you'll see some strengths kind of appear and some weaknesses. Like you put this into Grey Water, and the Fusiliers become even better. You put this into, as I said, Settler's Gain or a Hallow Heart, the Forward Forges become better. You know, you put them in different areas, and things kind of improve. Maybe you put this into a Vindicarum list, and you scale back some of the Steel Helms and bring Flagellants. Couple of questions then is where is the matriarch kind of following? Like as the game kind of progresses, um, who's it supporting the most?
Kind of what my thought on this is she's just literally like you want to get her out of your territory as soon as possible. So if it's full half boards, okay, it's a little tougher. But if you're at 11 inches, you're putting move on your steel helms to try to get them out, move on your fusiliers. And I think she kind of sits right in there between like maybe even in the middle of the Fusiliers or close to that. You know what I mean? And you've got steel helms on the front, maybe a small unit of steel helms in the back, or even you use your cavaliers to cover your backup. And you're just literally walking through as a giant just mob because you want to get that you want to get everyone in that 18-inch 5-up ward save bubble. And then the harder spot is trying to get everyone in that 12-inch +1 to their armor save bubble from the Warforger.
And the reason, by the way, just to come back for a second, why do you want to get the matriarch outside of your territory? It's because she has a prayer with a casting value of 3. If it's in your territory, you get to choose one of the following effects. There's 3 different effects. One is a 5+ ward bubble, wholly within 18, which is very generous. The other one is +2 move for humans. And then the other one, which I can't wait to do, is cast out all evil. So each enemy wizard and each enemy priest on the battlefield on a 2+ takes D3 mortal wounds.
Yeah, I
Two
love this one.
2 turns of that could be popping a whole bunch of those acolytes, like your little Hoarfrost blizzard people you're scared of. See you later.
Yeah, and it's all wizards, right? Or does it say hero wizards?
It's just enemy wizard or priest. So nothing specific about heroes. It's just wizard or priest.
Yeah, so or units that are wizards get a little extra money off that. You know, if someone's running acolyte builds or Zinch, you use that and you're like, okay, cool. All 3 of those units over there that were wizards, when they lose one model, they don't become wizards anymore. So you're like, cool, got rid of 3 wizards this turn for Zinch. That's not bad.
Yeah, it's a great model. It's a really cool model. But I wanted to know, like, but that 18-inch bubble, like anyone who played the old Demon Prince of Corn, like, knows that 18-inch bubble is super generous. That takes up a lot of the battlefield. So if you could just get it on the halfway mark outside your territory, 18-inch bubble giving up a 5+ ward to everybody, plus it's having its own natural 4+ ward. It's going to be the target. Everyone is going to try to take this out. It's only 9 wounds, but know that it's going to take a lot of focus from your opponent.
That's the perfect number of wounds, though. Now you can't get shot outside of 12. I mean, it's like a great number to be.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Uh,
and like going, oh, go ahead.
no, anything else you want to add with this list?
I was gonna say going back to battle tactics. I mean, raise the banners is easy in this one. Bring full arms to bear that you get a chance to suppressing, you know, and then maybe if you don't kill it, you get the cavaliers to finish it off. Mount the charge. You know, your cavaliers trading for, like I said, a cheap screen. There's a chance you can get the black powder bombardment and kill 3 different units, maybe middle or late of this game after you know whittled a lot of things down. Or like you said, I've done D3 more wounds to all the wizards 3 times. Now I'm gonna walk up. I already shot the other unit, so now they're not protected anymore, and I'm gonna kill the wizards off. You know, that's an easy target. They've all got 1 wound apiece. Sure, 5 fusiliers in each one. You know,
Yeah. Yeah. And the cool thing is that, yeah, one, it's got great battle tactics. 2, there's enough flexibility that if points did increase, you could just drop the endless spells, and hopefully that fat is enough for you to keep the same list. If you wanted to tweak it and you wanted to bring in a battle mage or a sorceress, or you wanted to bring in You know, what are they called? The Wild Corp, the Wielder Corp Hunters. You could drop some Steel Helms and bring that in as a battle line option to have some cheaper screens and pre-game movement, or like there's so many cool options that it's a list builder's dream.
Yeah, it really is. And I mean, it's 146 wounds, and the worst save in here is like a 4-up.
You could
No
go
complaints.
battle regiment to reduce this drop significantly. You could go warlord, command entourage. You could there's enough here that you've got flexibility. And as you said, there are 6 banners, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, because the command corp has a totem. Then there's banners on all of the free guild units.
12. Yeah, there's 12 banners. So there's 3 in the Fusiliers, I think, right? 2 in the Steel Elves, 2, 3, and then 1 in the Cavaliers. I'm not 100% on the Fusiliers. Though.
Yeah, that's literally what I was going to go check. But cool. Either way, like lots of banners. That's cool. And there's enough flexibility for you to tweak this however you want to tweak it.
Yep.
Any final comments before we move to the other list?
No, I think that's it.
Sweet. And obviously we can tweak this however we want to tweak it and change the city accordingly. The other one is Excelsius. I'm so excited to see Excelsius, the only city of ours in Gur. So while we're still in Gur and hopefully we move out in 12 months' time into a new realm, this is where the shard of the old world is sitting as Malice. There's a little bit of lore for you. Don't confuse me with 2+ tough. But you have banners held high again. Bloodthirsty is a triumph. You have the Free Guild General on Griffin, which is the grizzled veteran and the Sigmarite Warhammer. We kept the Matriarch of the Great Wheel, double Warforger. We just noticed there's no artifact on it. I think the other one had an artifact, or maybe I'm losing my plot.
Yeah, the other one did.
You've got 2 of the Free Guild Cavalier Marshals. So that's the hero on Horsey. You have a unit of reinforced cavaliers, 2 units of non-reinforced cavaliers, a unit of steel helms reinforced, and our good old friends, the Free Guild Command Corp, as well as Geminid. So a little less wounds, probably a little high armor save, a little higher movement. And yeah, how's this one differ? No shooting, no Fusiliers.
Yeah, I took no shooting in this list. This one's pretty fun. There's a lot of little tech in this list, and again, throwing in the Geminids and stuff. I'm just trying to throw a little, like you said, a little fat on these to make sure when they do make changes, or if they do make changes, your list are pretty safe. You know. So what I like about the Free Guild Marshal on Griffin is, so with this setup, he can only be wounded on 4-ups, which makes him innately a lot more tanky. Pretty nice. And then again with the Warhammer, and I got to double check on this. Yeah. So he gets 2 roars. He's going to be just as the guy up top is 4 attacks. If it's the first time he's going into fight, you can use the order. So up top, he's 5 attacks. Like say you all out attack him, because why not at that point in time? Now he's 2s, 3s, Rend 3, damage 4. I mean, he could do 20 damage to something just with the guy's attacks up top. That's not counting the things below. You know what I mean? And Rend 3 is nothing to scoff at, especially when he gets 2 roars, right? It's pretty nice. And I could have also given him that. Remember, we were talking about the reroll charges if he completes a charge. That one's not bad either. And then you've got the Pope, we're just gonna call her, and she's giving out the aura again, because having that ward save is pretty nice. You got 2 Warforgers. You probably are using Hoarfrost more often in this list, because obviously adding a bunch of Rend to one of these Cavaliers units could be good. And then using the innate spell on the Cavaliers is really good, because extra mortals is really strong. So you could, in theory, get one of them at Rend 3, and they're doing 6s to hit or mortals, and you can just rip through stuff. And then after they charge, after they attack, they're also doing their mortals. Now here's where we get oh, go ahead.
No, I imagine because of the speed, your Matriarch is going to mostly be following around the steel helms, because eventually, obviously, your Griffin, your Knights are going to be flying too quickly. They might get out of range, but I guess if you're hitting the 18-inch bubble, you could just hold them back a little, so you don't have to.
It's such a big bubble, man. Like, it's kind of comical, because if she's just using her 3 inches to move a little bit up, like, and you really want to go second in this list, so that way they're coming into you, and then you're moving back out, and you're getting all your little buffs off.
Great castle. Although if you went first, right, especially if you got like an aggressive Khorne or an ogre or a Sun's army, maybe you want to go first, just chuck on that ward, and prepare for impact.
Yeah, especially with that +1 to save, like you said, in the wards, you just sit there in that little bubble and go, all right, I'm waiting for my opportunity. Now, here's the really cool thing with this list. So, when a free guild Cavalier Marshal, the heroes, the mounted heroes, complete a charge, they get always strikes first.
Mm.
When they fight, a Cavalier unit gets to fight. So there's a world where you can charge with your marshals and your units of Cavaliers. So 2 units of Cavaliers, 2 units of marshals, or 2 heroes, and the Griffin. So the Cavalier Marshal fights, a unit of Cavalier fights. The Freeguild Cavalier fights, a unit of Cavaliers fight. So you get 4 fights at strikes first, and then you get the Griffin to fight as your first selected fight. So you fight with 5 units before they get to react to you. And they're all doing mortals, so that's on average 10 mortals plus all the damage all the stuff did.
I don't know if I forgot this rule or it's just because I missed it in all the goodness, but also the Free Guild Cavalier Marshal, when it uses Finest Hour, adds +3 to charge and gives it to friendly Free Guild Cavalier units while they're wholly within 12 inches.
Yeah.
Holy
Yep.
wow.
So it's pretty strong. Also, again, if they're fighting for the first time, you can give the whole unit +1 to attack from one of the orders.
That's
So
hot.
they start hitting really hard, especially with the 6s do mortals as well. Now, here's another really fun thing. For the slap back, you can put like just your steel helms out, right? And like say it's something that's really aggressive that wants to come into you. You get all your buffs off, and you put a bunch of counter charges on. Countercharge gives you an additional rend. So you would then be rend 3 when you countercharge. So you could take basically 3 counter charges, right? So like if you had a unit of Cavaliers tanking in the front, like the 5-man in the front, and then at the end of the phase, a unit of Cavaliers could charge and 2 Free Guild Marshals could charge. If one was Finest Hour, all 3 would be charging at +3 to charge. And again, all 4 units would get to fight first before the enemy who charged you gets to fight. And because they're doing the counter charge, they're all getting increased rend as well, and they count as completing a charge. So, like I said, the unit that's charging, that's just the Cavaliers, gets rend 3.
Are you worried about that reinforced unit of Cavaliers not getting all their attacks in because they're only 1-inch range, right?
Yeah, so I think on average you're going to get like 8 guys in. Is kind of the what I would resign myself to. In a
Okay.
perfect storm, you can get all 10 in. It's easy
Sure.
enough to do. But it's a pretty big investment, and you got to be willing to. As soon as you lose one, you're losing 4, right? Because as soon as you lose one, you now have to kill down to 6.
Mm.
So I think what you do is you just leave it as 8, and you have like little triangles on the corners, and just kind of hope for that and see how that takes you. And use your pile in to kind of correct it, and that way you're not losing a bunch of guys. But I think 8's a safe number. 7 or 8 is a safe number to be attacking with. And they hit so hard. That's why I only have 1 reinforced unit. I originally thought about running 2, but I think just having them separated gives you more power.
I would even almost maybe consider splitting the reinforced unit out to have 4 units of just 5, especially with the new coherency rules. I'm like, oh, you don't really get to benefit from that at all, being a unit of 10 when you're reinforced. Are you better off having 4 units as opposed to 3 units? I guess pros and cons either way.
Yeah, and that's what I think. So when I was playing a couple of games previously, I would screen with steel helms, put the 5-man units on the flanks with their marshals, and normally that would pick up the middle unit. You know what I mean? Like I'd be able to
Mm.
get the middle unit into one of the auras. I would then, going into my turn, Finest Hour and charge everything in, kind of get everything in. And then you're just so many things going first, and you're getting so many a little extra mortal wound chip damage on top of that. It felt pretty nice, but again, splitting them up isn't a bad idea. I think hold on, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It doesn't really, yeah, it doesn't hurt you on how many drops you'd be no matter what. So I think
Although you would get in Excelsius, especially, you would get the extra mortal wounds because you're rolling 10 dice for the 4 up as opposed to the 5. So again, there's pros and cons either way. Like that unit of 10 Cavaliers are going to slap, and they're going to slap hard between the +1 to wound on the charge. They get to do mortals on the way out. On when they've like finished combat. As I obviously said, look, in the martial strikes, they can strike. So there's some good stuff in here. I guess it depends on what we're fighting, and are we going to be fighting small MSU units, multiple? Doesn't change your list at all.
Yeah, and if you're splitting them up, you honestly have a case to run the one where you have a unit in each quarter, because there's so many little units here that it's really easy to put them in different quarters, and then maybe it's easier to get your grand strat. I'm not 100% sure. It's just going to take more play testing.
Or the unit of 10 is survivable enough to keep you around. So again, there's pros and cons either way.
Yep.
Who benefits from Hoarfrost the most in this list?
Um, Honestly, it's just you just throw it on there. I love it as just a deterrent. I think most of the time you're using her innate war scroll spell to get the sixes to hit, do mortals, and you're probably throwing Mystic Shield. Um, but I do like the opportunity of going, cool, here's my steel helms, and they're Ren 3. Do you want to come deal with them or not?
Literally what I was thinking. I'm going hitting on 4s, wounding on 4s. I'm like, I'm not Hoarfrosting that. But Ren nothing. They're 2 attacks each. Yeah.
It's comical. I mean, and again, you can also do it with the Cavaliers too. Like, okay, if I hit the Cavaliers with it, and you're like, all right, I'm either gonna hit their rend, or honestly, most likely I'll hit their to wound or something. You know what I mean? So now you can get them on 2s and 2s, and they're rend 2, damage 2. Like that's pretty solid damage, especially with the innate spell.
I know for me, I've really enjoyed the acolyte unit, the battalion having 2 wizards getting an extra primal dice on a 3+. So I could see a world where you also change the Hoarfrost to have double blizzard, and then if one goes down, you still got another blizzard, and you need, wherever you need the +1 save, you've got a blizzard somewhere else. So because I'm not seeing a lot of things who could actually benefit from Hoarfrost. It is good, but I'm not seeing.
No, it's not anything amazing. It's really just to help bridge the gap in case you aren't going to get your War Scroll spell off and you still have dice or something.
But outside of Excelsius or not on the charge, then the +2 wound to bring that down might actually be a benefit.
Yeah, yeah, 100%.
Mm.
And like I said, it's just a big combo army, and there's so much little play that people forget about. Being able to get that, that general on the Griffin to charge in, maybe roar something, and now he's also on the charge, and you're like, oh crap, do I put some attacks and try to kill the general now, or do I kill my original target? Now I'm -1 to hit effectively because I was gonna all out attack these guys, or and he's that general's then hitting for possibly dealing 20 damage if you just let him sit there too, right? So that counter charge is actually really, really strong. It's what I found was probably the most uh oppressive thing in that list. It's just being able to throw out, I've got 3 counter charges hidden, you don't know where they are, they're on hero somewhere. Do you tag everything? Because that's also annoying. Do you want to bring everything into combat? You know what I mean? Because then if everything's, even if it's a bad pile in, because I'm Excelsius, I'm doing mortal wounds as well.
Yeah, I like it, and I think this is like a real. It's not simple, and Cities has never been simple. It's always been like a lot of nuance, a lot of tech pieces, and I think what's come to the forefront between the old book and the new book is there's now even more reliance on small heroes, and the order mechanic is just getting you to think about and deconstruct your army a little differently. Instead of looking at one major force or looking at like you listen to anyone, they talk about like 3 threats, or you have power pairs. Like you've got to have unit hero or unit hero. You want to have these combinations, and when you start building it, you saw it in your list: cavalier marshal, cavalier marshal, fusilier. You're gonna have to have a marshal to be able to issue stuff to them, or like what are the pairs, what are the trios, and you see the war scrolls just become so much better because of the orders, because of the benefits, and then at the Pope, add a whole bunch of other units, and man, that 5-up ward is so good.
It'll get the nerf bat, but it's all right.
I used to run a Luminarch just to get a 6+ ward. I'm like, yeah, 6+ ward, Luminarch. Like, you're never coming out of retirement. I'm sorry, Luminarch. You stay at home.
No, that poor. I was really disappointed when they made the Huracanum that it's like units wholly within 9 inches get the buff now instead of models wholly within 9 or whatever it was. I was
But
like, ah,
the Hurricanum Storm of Shemtech, though, holy shite. To go from 3 attacks to now increases as the battle round kind of progresses.
yeah, but it shoots, technically shoots in both. So I think you get your value back in like turn 3 or something. But
I would be surprised if that's happening. Like
yeah, like you said. So if it doesn't happen, right? It's just objectively worse because you can't move it before you shoot now, and you're only getting one, 2d3, 3d3, 4d3, and 5d3.
Yeah.
So whereas originally you get like 15, now you get like some number less than that. Maybe it's
Yeah.
15 still. I don't know.
Well, 'cause it used to be consistent. You get 3 every time. Obviously, the profile would degrade, but the output, if you can keep it around, just becomes so much better in the late game.
Mhm.
But so maybe you're right. Maybe it is meant to shoot in both phases because otherwise the output is not turn one, turn two, when is the most crucial part of the game. Well, even turn two to turn three, I've lost power.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like just
Exactly.
comparing the two war scrolls between turn one, turn one to turn three, I've lost power. Turn four to turn five, I've gained power, but I don't need it then.
Yeah. I either one or I didn't most of the time by turn 4, right?
Yeah, yeah. How do you think, like maybe like one of the final questions, a couple of final questions. Do you think there's any good allies that you'd maybe bring into cities? That obviously we have such a great ally pool, everyone in order except for Seraphon. Is there anyone that kind of stands out for you that is worth considering?
I mean, obviously the little angry dwarf's always worth getting thrown in there somewhere. I mean, could you imagine him just standing amongst like 80 steel helms and it's just this guy too? You're like, how do I deal with that guy as well? You know?
Angry
Like
Man being
Go
Go
Trek.
Trek. Go
Yeah, he's
Trek.
just I mean, he just does so well, you know what I mean? Like he's pretty tough. And I mean, he most of the time he just makes his own objective, and then you can just deal with the other 3 objectives. And it's just like one dude off on his own. I think C Prime's really good because I think this army plays really well, especially in the early turns, kind of keeping people off of objectives, and then you don't have to bring C Prime down. So when he does come down, he's more valuable. So you got that guaranteed charge, and he can kind of be a surgical piece for you.
Mm.
Um, Other than that, I mean, I'm sure there's still always a little bit of the long strikes and the fulminators, the stuff everyone used to bring. But I think Fulm's actually increased or are too high on points now to bring a 4 anymore.
Yeah, yeah. Fulminators definitely. You can't take any more than two. Um, Dragons, you can obviously only take two. I was thinking like you're on the same page as I am, like because one of the things, the blaring gaps now, especially that Shadow Warriors are gone, is there's no movement tech. So like Shadow Warriors used to be a great deep strike unit. I'm thinking like Canary, or
Yep.
I'm thinking things like what's it called? The Daughters of Cain unit that like set up on the board and then they can teleport
Shadow
instead of moving. The
Stalkers. Shadow Stalkers.
Shadow Stalkers, or as you said, Prime. I think getting something coming off the field will bring a lot of, and like obviously the Prime Scepter can kind of do mortal wounds in a little bubble, great for the wizard meta. Um,
Tree
but I feel like
Revs.
that's the gap. Tree revs, that was literally where I was going. I was like,
Ah,
tree revs, anything that brings movement shenanigans, I could see not a big investment, get you to, score things on the side of the board, move around, reposition. Um, because you are a castle, as you've already said, you're moving as a big castle. Um, how do you reposition? How do you get to certain parts of the board? You need some tech. You can't teleport. You've got no natural deep striking outside of Living City Misthaven. So
yeah, and I think that's where we'll see like give it a few months, and the good players will start bringing some Misthaven. You know what I mean, to kind of fill that one gap that they really are struggling with. And then it's like the whole game they were moving 4 inches, and then all of a sudden they crossed the board on me. You know what I mean? Like it lulls you into that sense of security, and then all of a sudden they just reached out and touched everything you didn't want them to touch, and all your toys are gone.
the game is one in movement. Like it's not one in combat, it's one in movement. And yeah, I can't stress enough how important that is. So I dig it. I dig it a lot. Maybe some of the last questions would be, where do you think this army stands in the current meta? So assuming that like there's no nerfs, no changes, no war scroll updates, no points adjustments, when it enters the competitive scene, when it enters tournaments, do you think it's a 5-0 army? Do you think it's a gatekeeper to the top? Where are you standing?
I mean, it's definitely to an extent going to be a gatekeeper. I think it's like an A+ army. It's pretty high up there. I think it does really well into a couple of the boogeymen. So I think it does well into OBR. I think there's some really good options that do very well into zombies as well. And those are the two armies that people are afraid of right now. the third one that everyone's afraid of, I think is just it might just mollywop them. The frogs are just gonna be able to pick up so many of their support pieces. I think they're gonna struggle. So you might end up seeing, higher steel helm count armies because they're just like, cool. I'm just gonna keep trying to bring guys back to life. You know what I mean? And try to keep the frogs off the point. I don't know if it'll be enough. We'll see how that comes out. But I think that being said, Seraphon will kind of keep them in check. So I don't think they're going to be as bad as other people think. And I think Corn does really well. So, I said I've been playing a lot of Corn recently, and I think there's a lot of different play with getting rid of the heroes. And I think, that being said, any army that can really get rid of their heroes and limit their output is going to do well. Zinch will be able to basically control what they're doing as well.
And this is kind of why the matriarch becomes so important, because you've got to keep those heroes around as long as possible. So between the Freeguild Command Corps, between the matriarch, that's just going to avoid the hero sniping. And I wonder if you don't have something like that. You saw last year, you saw the Stormcast, like 4 banners, the Vexilor banners, where it's just like dropping mortal wounds. That's enough to pull down your heroes and shut down your entire, like, they're the linchpin. Like, without those little heroes, so many of your army doesn't do as nearly as much as what you want it to do. So you need protection.
Yeah.
Wrap it up. Wrap up your heroes.
It's kind of ironic coming from the Pope, right? The Pope's your protection.
The Pope is your protection.
There
There's a merchandise there somewhere.
I'm sure we can make some money.
But is there any final things you want to share? We've obviously talked a lot about this, and there's going to be a lot of things we're going to learn as we go. I'm sorry if we didn't talk about your favorite unit, folks. There will be more discussions, and maybe the Great Cannon's much better in a Duardin build, or maybe there's some secret list tech in the Lioness of the Parch at some other kind of build. But this is how we're probably thinking about it. And plus my idiot Vindicarum Flagellant army. But is there anything that you want to share, or do you want to kind of wrap us up and tell us, give some shout outs?
No, not necessarily anything in particular, but I mean, like I said, I've said it 100 times. This book's great. I think they did a really good job balancing it. I mean, their points might not be the best, but they can fix the points. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's actually a really coolly well-written book. You're gonna just want to kill the heroes. If you're really nervous about it and you think cities are just the boogeyman, just kill the heroes. You'll be fine. You'll be able to hang out and just do whatever you want at that point in time. So I think there's play. I think there's really cool things that cities can do, and I think there's really cool play to counter what cities wants to do. Like, we were talking about how cool Misthaven is. You know how you turn off them running all the way across the board? You just get within 12. Then they're just a normal move unit that might be able to charge a little further.
And there was a spell. Wasn't there a debuff spell for movement as well? Like, there was.
Oh yeah, they did have a debuff spell.
Is it Mystifying Me? Yeah, Mystifying Miasma does a spell, a movement debuff. So, like, there's so much shenanigans. I'm gonna be honest with you, mate. You've inspired me. Good. So I don't say this very often, but you've inspired me. I want to run a ethereal steam tank.
Oh, dude, it's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. And we were talking about how we lost all our toys earlier, right? I'm running Wild Riders for all my stuff. I'm literally gonna be running nothing but elves that I'll call them humans. You know what I mean? Like, it's all the same stuff. I mean, ethereal steam tanks could be hilarious because you just be able to camp it in the middle of the barn and be like, all right, cool. You thought whatchamacallits are bad. Now I've got a 2-up save that doesn't change.
I thought save stacking with my my Drakespawn Knights at 110 points was bad enough. Like, I survived a round of, so my 5 Drakespawn Knights in one game had 3 KO boats with a bunch of idiots on the boats shoot at them, and it just killed them. Just killed them. This steam tank's going to be forever. It's going to be like the MVP.
Oh yeah, if you don't have mortal wounds to deal with it, like, I don't even know what people do. I really don't.
It's just a magnet for Blizzard. It's just people are going to Blizzard that thing.
Someone's gonna blow themselves up. They're like, I didn't know how to deal with a steam tank. I had to just keep throwing dice at it, and I just exploded my whole army. Like, it was one steam tank, dude. Just retreat and walk around it. I don't know what to tell you.
Oh, speaking of steam tank, another good little list tech I probably wanted to say as well as an ally is until the War Scroll gets changed in the next Stormcast book, the Lord Ordinator. Because that's order. That's still order war machines, which I used to use a lot with my volley guns and my rocket launchers, which are no longer in the game. But it's steam tank's a war machine, so there's some tech there.
That's pretty neat. And steam tanks are actually just as good as those cannons. like shooting wise.
Mm.
They like do about, I think they do almost the same exact damage when you overcharge them. So as long as they're
I
not damaged.
I did think about the Lord Ordinator. If you took 2 cannons and you kept, because the Lord Ordinator has a little bubble of +1 within a range.
Mhm.
So you could have the Lord Ordinator 2 cannons keeping within the bubble, and you could just be popping off. There might be something in there, but you're right. They're probably still a little too
Yeah, if they
expensive.
cut points down, you could throw 4 of them and have a blast. No pun intended.
Is there anyone you want to shout out at this particular point? I think you and I could talk forever, and that's the
Oh, yeah.
problem, folks. This is why we had to focus it the way we focused it, because we'd be here forever, be looping back. You're like, oh, if we did this, we do this, then we try this, and this unit. We're like, that's the benefit of cities, but it's also the curse. So my advice to you is stick, build a theme, build around it. You'll be chasing your tail forever if you try to find like optimum synergy early on.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll give a couple people. So Noah Singh helped me with the first list a lot. He's played probably 5 or 6 games more than me with similar stuff. And then me and Nick True sat down one night and we were thought, what's the dumbest thing we can do with cavalry? And we sat there for about an hour and a half just laughing and being like, wait, so you're telling me 4 units can strike first and then I get to swing again and I get to roar twice? Like, this is awesome. What happens if you charge me? Oh, I still get to swing first? This is great. I'm playing this 100% of the time.
And then +3 on the charge if you use Finest Hour. Like, just cool. Giddy up.
Oh, yeah. Oh, also, they get +3 to move, too, because you use the order. So you're like, I move 13, and then I charge +3.
Who cares about redeploy? You're like, okay, I got like
Yeah.
plus a million.
Yeah. It's I think that'll be a really fun list. And like I said, me and Nick had a blast sitting there just coming up with it. A big thanks to those guys. And obviously I hang out with a lot of the Team American guys and they throw a ton of stuff at me. And, we post lists all through there and Tough Crowd Discord, the best club, obviously the championship club. So
Oh, I can't agree with you, mostly because at least at LVO last year, I was an honorary SoCal United person. I actually ranked pretty well despite one tournament going 4-1 with those Gargants. So uh, I don't know. I'm open to offers for LVO 2025, 24. I'll be back. So fight for my love, kids.
heck yeah.
But tough crowd has a great time. It was absolute pleasure meeting you guys at LVO and just seeing it all come to life. Like, you guys are just great players and great people. So you'll be at LVO again.
Oh, 100%. Yep.
What are you
Oh
bringing?
yeah.
Were you bringing cities, or are you going to bring something? Like, I guess it depends on like when all these units come out and what
Mhm.
the status of the book's going to be. Like, I'm concerned about rushing painting.
Yeah, so like I said, I'm just using stuff that I already have. So, and that was another reason why I got to write this list. I've literally got a Freeguild general sitting over here. I've got all my calves sitting over there. It's great for me. I did commit to going corn until the end of 2023, but guess what? LVO's right at that precipice. So I might be doing some TTS practice on cities and bringing something like that. It kind of just depends on where I feel the 2 armies are and which one is the best bet to try to take LVO, because we're all going there to win, right? So have a good old time and see if you can get that iconic 8-0,
Well, let's see how. And by the way, folks, just like I said at the start of the video, this is like literally day of release. So there has been no points adjustments, no erratas, no FAQs. We don't know the status. So if you're watching this 4 or 6 months after it's been released, just check the FAQs, see what's changed, see what erratas have come out. Some of the things we might have said are wrong or incorrect because they've been changed. For things like Hurricanum, for example, does it shoot in the enemy's hero phase or movement phase? I guess we'll wait and see. But shout out to Tough Crowd, shout out to Bart, who has been an incredible guest. I'm glad we waited. I said to you at LVO, I said, when Cities comes out, you're my first guest. And here we are 8 months later talking Cities. So thank you so much for your time. As I mentioned, this is one of 3. So there will be an Elf focused video and there will be a Duardin focused video. So stay tuned. It'll be coming up pretty soon. But Bart, thank you for your time. Folks, I hope you enjoyed this. And if there's things that we didn't talk about and you think is valuable, or you have some thoughts and ideas, you know what to do. Leave it in the comment section. I'd be curious to hear. Maybe there's some secret list tech that we haven't uncovered yet that maybe will make some valuable Wild Corpse or the Lioness or the Ogres, the Ogre Tower guys. We're all learning. All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Bart.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks for hanging around until the end. I hope you enjoyed that video and you walked away with a few new ideas. Now, if you did, I would love it if you pressed like on the video, as well as left me a comment with your thoughts. The conversation will continue over on Discord, and the link is down below in the episode description. I also want to give a massive shout out to the AOS Coach patrons and YouTube members who are supporting the channel and the growth that you're seeing here. So cheers, you are all bloody legends. And until next time, don't roll a double one on a spellcast.